Chapter 8:22. Don't be full when you eat, and don't be full when you speak. Fong Yin knew that Master Tianjizi was holding back. Since he was willing to help his grandpa's leg disease, it proved that he was sure that he could cure his grandpa's paralysis. At least it would improve his legs. Master Tianjizi just said that his grandpa's legs were cut off, but Fong Yin knew that his master was good at spring comes from withered wood. If he could rejuvenate his grandpa's two withered wood legs, wouldn't that be the ultimate meaning of Taoism? Thank you, Master, Fong Yin said gratefully. Thank you, Master. Tianjizi nodded and walked to the back of Fong Hui's wheelchair with a horsetail whisk in his hand. Fong Hui and Fong Yin were filled with curiosity. Old Master Fong Hui's leg was clearly injured, so why did Tianjizi run to his back? The human body is like a tree, and the soul of the tree is at the root. As long as the root is not cut off, nourished by water and bathed in the sun, it will be able to rejuvenate and sprout. Tianjizi understood Fong Yan's doubts and explained aloud. Those who only know how to treat the head and legs are unqualified quacks. Most head diseases can be treated and improved in the soles of the feet. There are many acupoints on the soles of the feet, and each acupoint corresponds to the major organs of the human body. This is also the principle of barefoot health. Tianjizi held the horsetail whisk in one hand and put the other hand flat on the top of Fong Hui's head. As I said just now, Mr. Fong's legs are cut off, and it is very difficult to treat the disease from the legs, because it is difficult to bear force there, and it is even more difficult to transfer qi. In this way, you can only get twice the result or return without any results. Tianjizi's words were quite instructive to Fong Yin. He glanced at Fong Yin and said, "You must remember." Fong Yin said respectfully, "I understand." Tianjizi nodded and didn't move, but a green light appeared in his palm. The cyan light enveloped the top of Fong Hui's head, as if it wanted to open a hole there and drill into it. A few seconds later, Fong Hui's forehead was covered in sweat. Half a minute later, Fong Hui was sweating profusely. Even his clothes were soaked. Fong Yin was surprised, but he did not disturb him. He was afraid that he would affect his master's treatment because he knew better than anyone else how much his grandfather wanted him to stand up. When Mo Qingdi's tendons were cut, he said that he hated himself for not being able to stand up. When the Fong family was looked down upon and bullied, he said that he hated himself for not being able to stand up. When Fong Yan's father, Fong Yixing, died in battle at the entrance of Swallow Dock Village, Fong Yin carried his father's corpse home. That day, Grandpa sat in the wheelchair and didn't say a word. However, Fong Yin would never forget the look in his eyes at that time. His eyes were filled with grief, despair, great guilt, and deep hatred. It was a pair of blood-red eyes. There were no tears, but it made everyone who saw it want to cry. It was also because it was difficult to forget that pair of eyes that Fong Yin blamed himself during the 3 years he was guarding his father's grave. If he had been a little earlier, if he had been a little faster, would he have been able to save his father? Would he have saved Grandpa from the most painful thing in life, where he had to see his son die before him? About 2 minutes later, Fong Hui's body began to tremble. He clenched his teeth to prevent himself from groaning in pain. His hands on the wheelchair kept trembling. His legs, which had been immobile for many years, also began to move. Although it was very small, it was still obvious that they were trembling. They moved. Fong Yin looked surprised. My legs moved. Old man Fong Hui's eyes were wide open. He felt a boiling hot torrent running through his body. Like red-hot molten steel flowing into a ditch, the blocked blood vessels and acupuncture points in his body were all forcefully opened. Taoism emphasized peace and tranquility, but when it came to treating illnesses, it was overbearing and barbaric. His body was in pain, but his heart was filled with joy. Hearing Fong Yan's voice, he wanted to grin, but because his body was in too much pain, his smile was a little distorted, and it was more like a distorted cry. They moved, Fong Hui said aloud, his voice becoming hoarse. I felt them move. This pair of old companions. We haven't been in contact for many years. When old Master Fong Hui's hair stood on end, some of them looking like they were about to be scorched, Tianjizi finally retracted his palm. He exhaled, then looked at Fong Yin and said, Elder Fong's body is weak, and it's difficult for him to bear too much aura of the Azure Bowl at one time. If you force yourself to hold on, you will only faint. Let's call it a day. Elder Fong, have a good rest. Don't take a bath. Just find a clean towel to wipe your body. Fong Hui knew that what Tianjizi said was the truth. Although he desperately endured for the sake of his dignity and treatment, if he persisted, his physical strength would be exhausted, and he might not be able to escape the consequence of fainting. It was good to have a temporary rest. However, he was still a little unwilling in his heart. If his legs could be cured in one go, he would be willing to accept fainting. Taoist master, my legs. Fong Hui let Fong Yin wipe the sweat off his face with a towel, then looked at Tianjizi anxiously and asked, I felt the move just now. I'm not afraid of you laughing at me, but for so many years, I couldn't feel their existence. They were like two pieces of wood on top of my body. Just now I connected with them. I felt a burning sensation. Tianjizi looked at Fong Hui with a face full of smiles and said, Elder Fong, I just helped you clear the meridians in your body. Because it was the first time I did this, the effect was the best. The second and third times will be slightly weaker. However, as long as you persevere, Elder Fong's leg disease will definitely be completely healed. I can't thank you enough. Fong Hui sat in his wheelchair and bowed to Tianjizi. Tianjizi stepped aside and said, Fong Yin and I are master and disciple. Elder Fong's actions have messed up the seniority. Elder Fong, please rest. I'll have a few more words with Fong Yin. Go ahead. Fong Hui said with a smile. Fong Yin, take good care of your master for me. Grandpa, don't worry. Fong Yin said with a smile. Fong Hui said goodbye to Tianjizi, then had his manservant, Fong Fuxing, push him to his room in the backyard to tidy up. Fong Yin asked Tianjizi to sit down, then poured him a cup of hot tea, then suddenly knelt in front of Tianjizi and kowtowed 3 times. Tianjizi didn't stop him, but looked at Fong Yin and said, When we confirmed our master-disciple relationship, you didn't kneel to me. Why are you kneeling now? Thank you, Master, for giving me a new lease of life. Fong Yin said with a serious face. Give you a new lease of life? Tianjizi shook his head and said, It's just to treat my leg disease. Master, you should be able to see that Grandpa's physical condition is very bad. Grandpa has loved martial arts all his life, but ever since his legs were paralyzed, he felt that life was meaningless. But in order to support the Fong family, he has been working hard to support it. Ever since my father died tragically at the village entrance 3 years ago, his body has suddenly deteriorated, and most of the spirit that supported him has been lost. Especially in the past 6 months, he has been half asleep and half awake every day, and his body has become so weak. I'm away from home, and every night I wake up from nightmares, dreaming that Grandpa is sitting in a wheelchair, waving at me, waving goodbye to me. If Master can cure Grandpa's leg, if he can stand up again, if he can practice martial arts again, I think his spirit will return, and his life will continue. Our Fong family can no longer have anyone leave, not a single one. Fong Yan's voice was deep and sincere. As he spoke, his eyes were red, seeming to be very worried about his grandfather's body. Pity your filial piety. The divine Jizi looked at Fong Yin with a gratified expression and said, As I said earlier, it's not that your grandfather's leg can't be cured. As long as he uses the Azure Ox Chi to help him unblock and repair it, he can still stand up again. It's just that I can't stay in Swallow Dock for a long time, and this is a big problem. Fong Yin crawled up from the ground and looked at the divine Jizi. I know Master has already thought of a way. That's right. There is indeed a way to solve this problem, the divine Jizi said with a smile. Come back with me and learn my Azure Ox Chi transfer technique and my spring returns to withered wood. When you return, massage your grandfather every day and your grandfather's leg will naturally be cured. Since ancient times, medicine and Taoism have been inseparable. At that time, you can also use this technique to help your mother's body. Her chi and blood are also weak, probably because of the worries in her heart that can't be resolved. Fong Yin frowned and said, Of course I'm willing to follow Master to learn, but I'm currently trapped in a cage, and there are many things that I have to deal with. It has to do with the Jiang family's coercion. Master also knows about this. There are millions of disciples in the Gate of Tao. It's very easy for me to find out a few things, the divine Jizi said with a prideful expression. Think about it. Is it more useful for you to stay in the outside world and fight against the Jiang family? Or is it more effective for you to follow me to the Gate of Tao? If the Jiang family knows that you're following me to the Gate of Tao, some of them will definitely be more cautious, and some things will naturally be done more discreetly. Furthermore, once you join my Gate of Tao, the millions of disciples will be your staunch support. At that time, who would dare to bully you? Chapter 823. Taoism was the sect of all Taoists. Confucianism, Buddhism, and Taoism. Although Taoism had declined in recent years and was the weakest of the three, it had a heritage of 1,000 years. However, it had been passed down for thousands of years, so it naturally had a deep foundation. Be it wealth or combat strength, it was not something others could compete with. Even if it was a family of generals that was as wealthy as a nation, if they really offended the Taoists, they might not be able to gain any advantage. Just as his master, Divine Jizi, said if there were 10 million Taoist disciples backing Fang Yin, the general family would not be able to do anything to him. At the very least, his life would be guaranteed. However, Fang Yin still couldn't agree to it. Or rather, he couldn't casually agree to it. Fang Yin looked warily at Divine Jizi and asked with a smile, "Master, tell me directly. What do you want me to do? Don't think that monks weren't human, and don't think that monks didn't have smart people." His master, Divine Jizi, had rushed all the way to Swallow Dock. If it was just to treat his grandfather's leg, Fang Yin would never believe it. He had repeatedly enticed him to head to the Taoists, and even said that he was willing to have 10 million Taoist disciples backing him. Then what did he want? Or rather, what did the Taoists want? Without figuring this out, Fang Yin didn't have the courage to close his eyes and follow his master to the Taoists, although he was very willing to believe in his master. "Do you still remember what I told you about the Taiji painting?" Divine Jizi asked in a deep voice. Yes. Fang Yan's mind stirred as he asked, "What happened?" Not long ago, one of the 3 dragons of Huaxia, Black Dragon, headed to the Immeasurable Temple to steal the Taiji painting. Divine Jizi's eyes were filled with anger as he said, "The Immeasurable Temple is where the dignity of the Taoists lies. How can we tolerate such impudence? To forcefully plunder it, isn't this bullying us Taoists?" And then, Fang Yin asked anxiously, the most mysterious of the 3 dragons of Huaxia, Black Dragon, had appeared. Furthermore, he had appeared for the Taiji painting. Black Dragon had been famous for a long time and was already a heavenly Tao realm expert. Why did he need the Taiji painting? What secrets were hidden in the Tai Chi diagram? The Black Dragon injured Qing Xian, the book reader of the Fanghua Pavilion. The Taichung sect master discovered the enemy and fought with him. The Black Dragon saw that it was difficult for him to win, so he escaped under the cover of night. The Tai Chi painting wasn't stolen, was it? Of course. The Taiji diagram is the Tao sect's supreme treasure. How can it be casually taken away by someone? After pondering for a while, Fang Yin looked at Tai Jizi and said, "At that time, the 2 masters were looking for the guardian of the Tai Chi diagram. I wonder if you have found the fated person." Tai Jizi looked at Fang Yin and said, "Whether we are fated or not, we have to see the Tai Chi painting first. Fang Yin, are you willing to give it a try?" "Why me?" Fang Yin asked. "Because we are fated," Tian Jizi said. "I have always been looking for a fated person. However, you and I are fated. Isn't it also fated with the Tai Chi painting? When Tyrant and I first saw you, we had already included you in our list of candidates. However, at that time, you were too vicious and frivolous. It was difficult for you to bear the heavy responsibility. Master, in fact, I am quite frivolous now," Fang Yin said hurriedly. Tai Jizi looked at Fang Yin with a burning gaze and asked, "Until today, you are still unwilling to bear this responsibility?" "Master, I am too tired." Fang Yin looked at his master Tai Jizi sincerely and said, "I want to protect this family, and I am already exhausted. How would they be able to protect this country and its people?" I am afraid of suffering and tiredness. I just want to rest. Let me take a breather. There was a faint smile on Fong Yan's face, as if a gust of wind could blow it away without a trace. I am a lazy person. If possible, I just want to find a school and be a leisurely teacher who stands aloof from worldly affairs. But I've been forced to this step. Every step is filled with danger, and every step is filled with danger. Master, I am afraid. I am afraid that if I die, our Fong family will be finished. My grandpa is old and weak. My mother is sick because of long-term worry, and I haven't even married a wife. If I die, our Fong family will be ruined. I'm not a bad person, and I am not a coward. When the country needs me, I am willing to stand up and fight for it. Like the countless heroes and sages of our swallowed dock, I am willing to fight for the prosperity of the country and the destiny of the people. But I don't want to take the initiative to meet them. I don't want to carry those responsibilities on my shoulders all the time. I don't want to suppress myself to the point that I can't breathe. I don't want to think that I'm the guardian of the Taiji, painting every time I wake up from my sleep. Is there anything that I didn't do well or do well? Master, my biggest dream is to take good care of my grandpa's health, to make my mother happy, to marry a wife and have several children, and then to live happily with my family. Oh, by the way, Master, I'm going to get married. Yiro, she's a very good girl. Tianjizi pondered for a long time, then looked at Fong Yin and asked, if I give you the Tai Chi diagram, do you want it? Yes, Fong Yin answered without hesitation. Whoever didn't want it was an idiot, but just because I took the Tai Chi diagram, you can't treat me as the guardian of the nation. Someone in the east invaded the border, looking for Fong Yin. Someone killed someone in the west, looking for Fong Yin. A cow disappeared in the south, looking for Fong Yin, whose daughter-in-law in the north didn't get pregnant, looking for Fong Yin. Fong Yin hoped that he was an independent individual with his own thoughts, not a puppet held hostage by national righteousness. Come with me, Tianjizi said. Master, Fong Yin was shocked. You really gave me the Tai Chi diagram. As you said just now, you're not a bad person, let alone a coward. You already have the basic conditions to obtain the Tai Chi diagram. Taoists pay attention to naturalness, and they will never force others with their own will. Don't worry, even if you get the Tai Chi diagram, you're still Fong Yin. Just like how Mo Qingdi was still Mo Qingdi even after he got the Tai Chi diagram. Master, I'm going to pack up now. Let's go immediately, Fong Yin said excitedly. Your grandfather asked me to stay for lunch. Tianjizi said helplessly. Is this kid driving me away? Oh, is that so? Fong Yin was stunned for a moment, then said, then I'll go pack up first. We'll leave whenever you say so. It had just rained on Monkey Mountain, so the entire forest had been washed. The leaves were clear and beautiful, and the rocks were bright. The Taoist temple that was built at the edge of the cliff gave people an even more mysterious feeling, as if it was a divine temple. Fong Yin had been in Wuyang Temple for 3 days. Except for his master, Tianjizi, who brought him in, everyone else in the Taoist temple treated him like an invisible person. This was a little different from what he had expected. A talented young man like him was the hope of Taoism's resurgence. His master personally went to Swallowed Dock to invite him. When he arrived at Wuyang Temple, the Taoist Taichung school led the legendary 3 mysteries and 7 mysteries to welcome him. Taichung stroked his beard and looked at him. He laughed and pointed at him and said, this kid has a good foundation and is extremely talented. In the future, the important task of guarding Taoism will be handed over to you. Then, he took his hand and walked into the main hall. Under the gaze of the Taoist gods and countless Taoist elites, he took out the Tai Chi diagram and handed it to him. If he refused, Taichung would give it to him. If he refused again, Taichung would be furious and say that this was what the people of Taoism all over the world wanted. Fong Yin did not see the legendary Taichung schoolmaster. He did not even see the other 2 of the 3 mysteries and 7 mysteries. Don't they realize how important I am? Fong Yin suspected that he had been deceived by his master. They had brought him to Wuyang Temple on purpose to put him under house arrest. But why did they want to imprison him? Could it be that they were also bribed by the Jiang family? Fong Yin thought to himself. Then, he immediately pushed this thought out of his mind. If the Jiang family can even bribe the Taoist sect, then I don't have to resist. I could just extend my head and let them chop it off. The only thing that satisfied Fang Yin was that the living conditions in Wuliang Temple were not bad. There was a balcony in his room. The balcony was suspended in the air, and if he stepped on it, he would see a cliff that was 10,000 feet high. The mountain breeze blew, and the fog lingered. The distant mountains were like an ink painting, decorated with red and green, making people feel relaxed and happy. There was also Wuliang Temple's specialty, ambergris, to refresh his mouth. This kind of tea could not be drunk outside. Fang Yin could not bear to drink too much, so he hid a small pot of tea that the Taoist priest had given him and prepared to bring it back to his grandfather. His grandfather liked to drink this tea, and it was good for his body. Knock, knock, knock. There was a light knock on the door. Fang Yin walked over and opened the door. His master, Tianjizi, was standing at the door with a smile. "Master, you finally appeared." Fang Yin pulled his master's sleeve and said, "Where is the Tai Chi diagram? Didn't you say that you would give it to me?" Tianjizi looked at Fang Yin with a smile and said, "After the rain, the weather is late and autumn is coming. The mountains are beautiful, the scenery is good, and the air is good. Why are you always cooped up in the room? Come, I will take you out for a walk." "Master," Fang Yin was not in the mood to look at the scenery. Chaoyan technology was being attacked by the Jiang family, and the willow tree in Lan Mountain Valley was still resisting the endless methods of the Jiang family. Although the Qin family had gone down the mountain to participate in the battle, their support was limited. The Jiang family was attacking with all their might, and the strength of the two was different. Most of the attacks had to be resolved by Fang Yin and the others themselves. Fang Yin only wanted to obtain the Tai Chi diagram as soon as possible, unravel the secrets within, discover the ultimate technique inside, and then quickly return to Flower City to kill everyone. When your mind is in a mess, all you see is negative karma. Tianjizi said unfathomably, "Put down your burden and run to nature. Master, if you don't give me the Tai Chi diagram, I will run to Swallow Dock." Chapter 824. You have no understanding. Tianjizi looked at Fang Yin with disappointment. He was very disappointed with his disciple. "I have said it so bluntly, but you don't understand anything. Master, with all due respect, you are not straightforward at all. What do you want to say? Are you going to give me the Tai Chi diagram or not? Didn't I tell you to go out to see the scenery and breathe the fresh air? I asked about the Tai Chi diagram, but you asked me to see the scenery. Master, don't play with me, okay? I'm stupid. It's not fun." Tianjizi felt that his breathing became heavy. He wanted to use his 12 palms of the Celestial Master to slap Fang Yin into meat paste. Inexplicably, how did he get such a disciple? If possible, Tianjizi really wanted to return it. If you don't go out to see the scenery, how can you find the scenery you want to see? Tianjizi forcibly suppressed the hostility in his heart with a lousy mind-clearing mantra and said while looking into Fang Yin's eyes. Worried that he still didn't understand, he blinked his eyes cutely. "Master, tell me the truth. Are you going to give me the Tai Chi diagram or not? Why did you blink?" Tianjizi took Fang Yin for a walk in the yard, muttering, "The beauty of heaven and earth is in the mountains, in the water, in the air, in the breeze, in the moon, in the river. In the spring sowing and autumn harvesting, in the frost, in the snow, in the flowers and plants in the yard, and in the big vat in the corner. It's not that there is no beauty in the world, but there is a lack of eyes to discover it." Fang Yin finally had a pair of eyes that could discover beauty. He strode toward the big vat in the corner of the yard. He stood next to the big vat, but there was no movement in the vat. "Master." Fang Yin turned around and called out. His eyes searched around, but he found that he had lost his master. Fang Yin was stunned for a while, and his face became dignified. He picked up a small pebble from the ground and threw it into the big vat. The pebbles splashed with tiny splashes of water, and ripples formed on the surface of the water tank. When the ripples disappeared, the mirror surface of the water tank became calm again. Fang Yin craned his neck to look into the vat. The water was pitch black and seemed bottomless. This was just an ordinary water tank. Many people would set up such a large tank in their yard to raise fish or grow some aquatic plants. However, Fang Yin had an illusion that when he stood in front of the water tank, his heart was pounding fiercely, as if there was a dangerous monster hiding inside, or something important was about to happen. Rain began to fall from the sky again, falling into the water tank. Tiny but beautiful ripples appeared on the surface of the water. The bottom of the water tank had green plants growing wildly, and the bottom of the water tank was covered with dense moss. A snail was carrying a backpack and trying to climb a mountain to a water tank. After climbing a few centimeters with great difficulty, it slipped and fell. It shook its head and tried again. However, all of this was meaningless to Fang Yin. He stretched out his hand and opened it in the air. The tiny raindrops made his palm wet. "It's raining." Fang Yin sighed softly. When he turned around and was about to leave, the expression on his face suddenly became strange. His heart pounded again, and an emotion called joy filled his whole body. He turned around abruptly and saw a shocking scene. On the mirror surface of the water tank, two big fish, one red and one black, were blowing bubbles with their huge heads. Puff, puff, puff. One bubble after another came out of their mouths and floated on the surface of the water tank. Soon, they exploded again. "You guys are so cute," Fang Yin said to them with a smile. Fang Yin looked at them affectionately, as if he was looking at Yiro. The two big fish, one red and one black, blinked their small eyes and looked at Fang Yin. Then they blew a long string of bubbles at him. Puff, puff, puff. Fang Yin laughed loudly. Crack. The begonia cup made by Kai Mingfu, a porcelain master from the Qing dynasty, was smashed into pieces on the wall. General Xing's face was gloomy, his eyes cold, and there was an irrepressible ruthlessness in his voice. The whole army was wiped out. General Xing's voice was like a roar. How could the whole army be wiped out? Second young master hid very well, but he was still stepped on by Fang Yan's two martial nephews, Fang Yingying and Fang Haoan. The Snake Lord controlled the snake formation to trap second young master. In a moment of desperation, second young master ignited the genetic bomb, so everyone died. Everyone is dead. General Xing panted heavily. He took a cigar from the box in front of him. After carefully trimming it, he lit it and took a deep puff. In the process of doing this, his state of mind finally calmed down. His eyes were like ghosts in the smoke. He looked at the man in black in front of him and said, "What about you? Why are you still alive?" "Because the heavens want me to live," the black-clothed man said in a heavy voice. "Fang Yin is not dead, so I have to live well." "You don't help?" "I've tried, but I failed." The black-clothed man calmly faced General Xing's scrutiny and doubt. He said, "Perhaps I can't turn defeat into victory, but if I want to leave, they can't keep me." Even though he was just a dog of the general family, the black-clothed man had an arrogance that would not allow others to look down on or insult him. General Xing also knew that he was very confident when he said these words. General Xing knew that his probing was too obvious. He took a cigar from a box and threw it over. The black-clothed man caught the cigar and then returned it. He said, "I don't smoke. You're living a boring life." General Xing laughed and teased. "I'm not suspecting you of anything. It's just that this matter is too strange, and this news really does make one's heart feel bad. No matter what, he is my younger brother. Tell me, how should I go back and talk to the old man about this? He always had high hopes for him, but now this hope has been cut off by someone. He must not be in a good mood, right?" The black-clothed man did not answer. He knew that General Xing had no intention of letting him answer this question. General Xing looked at the black-clothed man in front of him and said, "You should know that you and I are grasshoppers on the same boat. In this world, besides the general family, no one can protect you." "I understand," the black-clothed man said. "You are a smart person." General Xing nodded his head with incomparable appreciation. He said, "I'm very happy that you were able to send this news to me. Then, from today onwards, we are friends, right?" The black-clothed man was silent for a while. He said, "I don't have the qualifications to be friends with you." "Ha ha." General Xing laughed loudly. He pointed at the black-clothed man and said, How could that be? You're a bastard, and so am I. We should be friends from birth, right? A smile appeared on the black-clothed man's face. He was also amused by General Xing's self-deprecating words. General Xing stood up and said, "The white-haired person sending off the black-haired person. This is truly a tragedy. I really don't want the old man's body to be harmed because of this matter, but I still have to tell him. He has to take care of the important matters of the family." The black-clothed man bowed as General Xing left. His body also disappeared into the darkness. Dead? The old man, who was tending to the precious camellia in the courtyard, stopped moving. His body stiffened as if he had been magically frozen. First with surprise and disbelief, then undisguised sorrow. "Is the news confirmed?" "It's confirmed," General Xing said in a low voice. "Although my brother has left the general family, he has been secretly contacting me. It's not easy for him outside, and I've done my best to support him with money and various other resources. After receiving the news, I tried to contact him again, but I still haven't received a response. His assistant has also disappeared. It seems that he's also dead. If he's alive, I want to see him. If he's dead, I want to see his corpse." The old man used a great deal of effort to straighten his back. He took off the cotton gloves on his hands and rubbed his calloused hands together. He said, "No matter what, you have to bring him back to me." "I will," General Xing said with a serious expression. "I've already sent people out to search. No matter what, you have to bring my brother back." The old man sat down on a rattan chair under the eaves. Because he used too much force, the chair creaked. General Xing handed over a cup of hot tea, but the old man did not reach out to take it. "I was the one who chased him out, so I have to bring him back." The old man muttered to himself. "If he's really gone, find a way to bury him in the Jiang family's ancestral grave." General Xing nodded again and said as if he was making a promise, "Grandpa, don't worry. I'll arrange it." "I regret it," the old man said softly. "What?" General Xing was stunned, not understanding why his grandfather would say such a thing. He had roamed his entire life and experienced countless battles, but he had never said the word regret. "Some time ago, Sir brought Fong Yin to our home as a guest and had the intention of making peace, but I refused," Jiang Shifu old man said with a sorrowful expression. "If I wasn't so extreme and stubborn at that time, I would have called back the military order to apologize and compensate him as much as he should have. This matter wouldn't have developed to this stage, and the military order wouldn't have ended up like this." General Xing was silent. He thought to himself, with his understanding of Fong Yin, if it was just Jiang Junling apologizing to Fong Yin would probably not accept it, right? But since we've already taken this step, Jiang Shifu old man's hand gripped the handle of the rattan chair so hard that the old twigs creaked. "Then let's do our best. The Jiang family and Fong Yin will not rest until one of us is dead." Chapter 825. There was no bright moon and not a single star. The entire sky was pitch black, just like what they were feeling at this moment. No one would have thought that a fight with an insignificant young man would develop into such a situation. It wasn't as if the Jiang family hadn't stepped on anyone before. There were many youths who were praised as brimming with talent, who still couldn't stand out. Their lives were mediocre, and they spent their lives in sullenness and poverty. Because of their downfall, it naturally affected their descendants. Their entire family would have to pay the price for their foolishness and ignorance of times. At that time, they should have felt regret, right? But why had things developed in a direction they had never imagined after encountering Fong Yin? General Xing had never thought that the Jiang family would lose, much less that someone from the Jiang family would die. It should be the enemy of the Jiang family that had died. Grandfather Jiang Shifu's voice was very calm, but his words were filled with bone-deep hatred. General Xing knew that his grandfather had finally made his final decision. He would support him and Fong Yin unreservedly until one side died in battle. Of course, General Xing knew that the one who would die in battle would definitely be Fong Yin, because even now, General Xing still didn't believe that Fong Yin would be able to stop the Jiang family's aircraft carrier, which was moving at full speed. Of course, He would be happy to see such an outcome. I will do my best. General Xing looked at his grandfather and said, I also have the confidence to avenge my younger brother. It's just that the Qin family has always been on the edge of the battlefield, which has brought us great trouble. For now, we still can't understand the Qin family's intentions. If we use too much force, I'm afraid the Qin family will get even more involved, and we will have to first face the pressure the Qin family will bring us. At that time, the Qin family will become our main opponent. If we use too little force, and the Qin family doesn't feel the danger, then they will continue to fish in troubled waters and take a vicious bite when we are unprepared. That is also extremely dangerous. Tomorrow, I'll go to the Qin family to find an old friend for tea, Grandfather Jiang Shifu said. Jiang Shifu said, it's time for you and that girl to give the Qin family an explanation. I'm sorry, General Xing said with a guilty expression. I've caused trouble for Grandfather. Jiang Shifu waved his hand and said, military order. I once had high hopes for him, but he disappointed me later on. I don't want that to happen to you. General Xing's eyes flashed with the light of swords as he said, I will make Fang Yin pay the heaviest price for what he has done. Go. Jiang Shifu waved his hand and said, do your job well, and take care of your health. General Xing stood up, bowed deeply to his grandfather, then turned around and walked out the door. After sending off the general, the tigress walked to the old man and said, Master, who do you think killed the military order? The old man asked. I don't know, the tigress said without hesitation. The old man smiled bitterly and said, you are quite smart to not want to get involved in these troublesome matters. Go and check it out. See if this grandson of mine is still my grandson. Yes, the tigress replied and strode away. The old man sat in the courtyard and sighed heavily. He thought of Feng Huwei, the old man who also lost his son. When he found out that his son died at the entrance of the village, his mood should be the same as mine, as cold to the bone, right? Winter is coming. Jiang Shifu old man pulled the front of his clothes and sighed softly. Yinjing. Maple Leaf Club. Luo Mingan stood at the entrance of the club, personally greeting every guest. Tonight, Maple Leaf Club will host a charity dinner. The proceeds will be donated to a group of nuns to help them rebuild their temple. This event was personally arranged by the real boss of Maple Leaf Club, Qin Tian. One of the 3 maple leaves of Maple Leaf Club, Luo Mingan, was in charge of this event. Luo Mingan greeted the VIPs with a smile as he looked at the elevator. She knew that woman would arrive very soon. But what made Luo Mingan confused was, since when did the Yin family and the Qin family have a relationship? She never heard that the woman from the Yin family had any sort of relationship with the woman from the Yin family. However, such a thing had happened, and she was the one who had to handle it personally. Just as she was thinking about this, the elevator door opened again. Phoenix, dressed in a cyan frock, came out holding an old nun, followed by several other nuns in cyan shirts and hats. Seeing in Xiao Xiao's dress, Luo Mingan was stunned for a moment, because she didn't know how to greet the young lady of the Yin family. She couldn't just call her abbess or master, could she? Of course. She only hesitated for a second. Luo Mingan quickly walked towards Phoenix and said with a smile, Missin, you're finally here. The 120 invited guests are almost all here. Would you like to go on stage and say a few words? Phoenix came over with the help of the old nun. She looked at Luo Mingan gratefully and said, Mingan, you've worked hard. If it weren't for you, it might have taken a long time for my masters and I to return home. I won't go on stage to say anything. I'll recite the Diamond Sutra with my masters and sisters backstage for those generous and kind people. Thank you, Missin. I'll convey your great love to everyone. I think everyone will be enthusiastic and help the masters rebuild the temple and rebuild the Sutra Pavilion. When Luo Mingan said this, her eyes were also looking at Phoenix. She had seen Phoenix once before. At that time, the woman was still proud and willful, with a spirited face and memorable red hair. Now Phoenix's hair was long and wrapped in a cyan hat. Her cheeks were thin, her eyes were deep, her temperament was calm, and she spoke gently. She seemed to be in a good state of mind. However, if the woman of the Yin family wanted to rebuild a temple, Would she still need to use this kind of fundraising method? It was said that she and the nuns she brought back had lived outside for a long time and had never stepped into the family. Even if the family went to look for her, she would avoid them. She was hostile to her own family. Phoenix bowed to Luo Mingen and said, "Thank you again, Mingen. Missin, please go backstage and rest." Luo Mingen made an inviting gesture. Seeing Phoenix's slim back as she left with the nuns, Luo Mingen sighed softly in his heart. Why bother? Qin Tian was very busy these days. In fact, she could have been less busy because she was used to handing over a lot of things to her assistants and secretaries. However, if she didn't let herself be busy, she would be in a bad mood. Therefore, she took back the things that had been handed over in the past. For some major cooperation projects, she would personally negotiate. For some dispensable meetings, she would also attend for a while. For some collaborators that she was annoyed with before, she was also willing to take a few minutes out of her busy schedule to meet them. Oh, she even went to the CEO's office to look at the afternoon tea menu. She changed the cheesecake into matcha cake, saying that the former was too fat and not suitable for weight loss. At the end of a full day, when Qin Tian was ready to get off work and leave, the phone on the table rang. The assistant next to her picked up the phone and reported to Qin Tian, saying, "Miss, there's a Miss Yi at the front desk asking to see you." What? Qin Tian closed the magazine in her hand. After a moment of thought, she said, "If her surname is Yi, then she must have said that she wanted to see me, not that she wanted to see me. Is that right?" The assistant didn't think it was a surprise, because he didn't think there was anything in this world that could be hidden from this proud and beautiful woman. He nodded and said, "Yes, the secretary at the front desk did say so. Missy asked to see you. Invite her up," Qin Tian said. The assistant conveyed the order and hung up the phone. Qin Tian thought for a while, got up from the sofa, and said, "I'd better go out to meet her. After all, she's a guest from afar." The personal secretary brought up a pair of high heels and a coat, and the assistants packed up and followed Qin Tian out of the door. Ding! When the elevator arrived, Yi Ro appeared in the exclusive elevator for Qin Tian. Yi Ro looked at Qin Tian, who was standing at the door, to greet her, and her expression didn't change at all. It seemed that this kind of thing was also within her expectation. She looked at Qin Tian and explained, "I thought you should be here, so I came to meet you. I hope I didn't disturb you." Qin Tian nodded, like a proud little swan, and turned around and said, "Please come with me." After entering the office, she said to the secretaries and assistants around her, "You can all leave now. Don't come in without my order. Miss, do you want some tea? Or coffee?" The secretary asked with embarrassment. "No need," Qin Tian said. "Not now." Clang. The luxurious door of the office was slammed shut. Qin Tian looked at Yi Ro and said, "Are you here to make fun of me?" After a pause, she shook her head and said, "No, you are not that kind of shallow woman." She seriously looked at Yi Ro standing in front of her and said, "So, are you here to comfort me?" She shook her head again and said, "No, this is not something you can do." Then, "Missy, why did you come to see me?" Chapter 826. In ancient times, there was a saying that a king couldn't meet another king. Now, there was a saying that the first branch couldn't meet the mistress. When two or more women were together, the fierceness of the fight could be compared to a small-scale war. One was a powerhouse who stood at the peak of martial arts, and the other was a queen who was as rich as a country. Any man who was able to gain the favor of one of them would be a great blessing to his ancestors. However, Fang Yin just had deep feelings for these two women. You could have your cake and eat it too. Qin Tian and Yi Ro were much more precious than fish and bear paws. Therefore, when Fang Yin wanted to marry Yi Ro, he would naturally hurt the other woman, Qin Tian. Qin Tian was such a proud and independent woman. Strictly speaking, she was the loser in this battle of love. Today, Yi Ro took the initiative to meet her, which naturally aroused her uncontrollable jealousy in her heart. Whether it was a woman or a goddess, jealousy was inborn and hard to get rid of. Even an excellent woman like Qin Tian couldn't help but think, why did he choose Yi Ro instead of Qin Tian? Is she really more suitable than me? Qin Tian refused to accept it. Therefore, the moment she saw Yi Ro, she had restrained and reduced her hostility. Yi Ro knew where her hostility came from, so she didn't get angry and treated it indifferently. Yi Ro's attitude angered Qin Etienne even more. She found that the more she showed that she cared about Yi Ro, the more it proved that she had lost completely. Of course, this was only a battle between a few sentences. Soon, both of them returned to their normal state of interaction. Qin Etienne didn't want to continue to entangle with the enemy on the battlefield where she had been defeated, so she led the topic to Yi Ro herself. She was a little curious. Yi Ro was going to marry Fang Yan. Why did she come to visit me at this time? To show off? She rejected this idea without hesitation. If Yi Ro was a woman with no self-restraint, Fang Yan wouldn't have chosen her as his life partner. Qin Etienne believed in his own judgment. How could the man she fancied be bad? Qin Etienne's office was excessively spacious and luxurious. There was an office area, a lounge area, a sports area, and even a music area. Usually, in addition to Qin Etienne working and resting here, there were several secretaries and assistants guarding around to receive all kinds of orders from Qin Etienne at any time. To facilitate the negotiation with Yi Ro, Qin Etienne drove all the staff out. Even though there were only 2 skinny women in this 400 to 500 square meters room, it did not feel empty and desolate. This was because the aura that these 2 women exuded was enough to fill up this huge room. Yi Ro walked to the French window and looked down at the city. She said softly, "Fang Yan is having a hard time. Only you can help him." Straight to the point. Regardless of whether she liked this woman or not, Qin Etienne had to admit that she liked this woman's straightforwardness and magnanimity. If there was something to say, just say it. Squeaking and nagging would only make people annoyed. Qin Etienne walked to the sofa and sat down. She picked up the banana milkshake that she had just taken a sip of. She sucked the pure, white, soft tube with her delicate red lips and said with a smile, "Did you come for this matter? The general family's offensive is fierce. Huacheng can't withstand it. If you were someone else, Fang Yan would ask you for help. But you are Qin Etienne, so no matter how difficult it is, he won't ask you for help," Yi Ro said softly. So, I should take the initiative to help him. Qin Etienne looked at Yi Ro thoughtfully and said with a smile, "How do you know that I didn't help him? I know that you have been helping him." Yi Ro looked at Qin Etienne calmly, making it clear that she was speaking from the bottom of her heart. "I know that you have done many things behind his back, but this is far from enough, so what you mean is I should drag the entire Qin family into a battle with the general family. What if the general family will suffer a crushing defeat in this battle?" Qin Etienne's eyes were like twinkling stars, instantly lighting up the entire room. He asked, "What guarantee do you have?" "The Heavenly Tao Realm's heart of Heavenly Tao," Yi Ro said with certainty. After entering the Heavenly Tao Realm, one has to follow the heavens and follow one's heart. If one goes against this heart, at best, one's cultivation will no longer improve. At worst, one's realm will collapse and one will become a cripple. Qin Etienne sighed softly and said, "You should know my current situation in the Qin family. It's not up to me to make decisions in the Qin family. The influence I can bring is also extremely limited. If I could make decisions, would I need to wait for you to come to me today? The general family would have long been destroyed. I'm only telling you the outcome. As for how the Qin family will react, that will require you to convince them." Yi Ro turned around and looked into Qin Etienne's beautiful eyes. The setting sun outside the window elongated her figure infinitely. Her shadow was cast on the sofa next to Qin Etienne. Half of their bodies overlapped, and they looked like a pair of sisters who were very close to each other. "I know you're very smart. Everyone knows you're very smart. I believe that there's nothing in this world that can stop you. As long as you're willing, you can do it. It's the same for me." Qin Etienne bit his lips and snorted coldly. "Are you trying to provoke me? Bring it on." Fang Yan didn't know that the 2 girls were at daggers drawn in Yin capital. All his thoughts and energy were focused on the large fish tank. Ever since his master, Tianjizi, directed his attention to that big fish tank, he had never left that fish tank. He didn't eat, drink, or move. He just stood next to the fish tank, watching every change in the fish tank. He watched the black and red fish bubble, watched them stir the water in the fish tank into whirlpools, watched the calm water, and watched the ripples when the raindrops fell into the tank. Fong Yin had been standing in front of the fish tank for 3 days. No one told Fong Yin if the fish tank was the legendary treasure Tai Chi diagram, but Fong Yin knew very well that it was the Tai Chi diagram he was looking for. What was Tai Chi? Zhuangzi said, above Tai Chi, it's not high. Below the 6 extremes, it's not deep. Born in ancient times, it's not old. Tai Chi was big. Ji was the end, the extreme point. The fish tank wasn't big enough, and the water in the tank wasn't deep enough. It wasn't that one couldn't see the end of it. However, everything complemented each other and formed a harmonious whole. The fish benefited from the water and the fish. The fish were happy from the water and the tank. The water had a tank, and the fish in the tank lived. The fish were alive, and the water was flowing. With the living fish and water, the tank became lively. Some people only looked at the fish and the water, but no one ever looked at the tank. What was a tank? It was the foundation and also the core. It was the root and also the soul. It could be the round frame on the Tai Chi diagram, or it could be the inside of the black and white fish. It could be infinitely big or infinitely small. It changed with the number of fish and the depth of the water, but it also limited the number of fish and the depth of the water. It was the sea of energy of Fong Yan's Tai Chi heart, the crazily spinning core. No matter how the fish swam, no matter how the water was stirred, the core would not disperse, and the fish would not die. 1 is 2. 2 is infinite. 1 is not a number, it is nothing. It is nothing. It is infinite to begin with, so why regenerate it? Countless kinds of information were gathering in Fong Yan's mind, and countless thoughts were colliding. Some of those thoughts were in pairs, some were in groups of 3 to 5, and some were promoting and nourishing each other. Most of the time, they were in conflict with each other, killing each other to the death. The so-called heavenly Tao realm was not a competition with others, but a competition with oneself. If one couldn't even convince oneself, how could one conquer the heavenly Tao? When one's thoughts were clear, it was the day one could step through the door to the heavenly Tao. Fong Yin saw a glimmer of hope, as though he could touch it just by reaching out his hand. But what he needed to do now was to first convince himself. At the courtyard's arched door, on the moss-covered stone steps, several Taoists stood silently. The leader of the group was a Taoist priest who looked extremely old. His old age was a kind of feeling. It was the kind of feeling that made people feel that he was old, that he should have experienced many hardships, and that he should be respected by everyone. However, one could not find any signs of old age on him. This was the return to simplicity that came when one's cultivation level reached its pinnacle. It could also be said to be the Taoist's spring returns to a withered tree. Behind him were a few Taoists of different heights dressed in azure-colored robes. They served behind the elder, deliberately maintaining a distance of a step from him. "How long have you been standing there?" the elder asked. "Sect Master, he has been standing there for 3 days," Divine Jizi said softly. "That means that he entered a meditative state on the 2nd day. He came to immeasurable temple," Sect Master Taichung said in astonishment. "I heard that he and the previous Taiji diagram guardian, Mo Qingdi, were fellow disciples. How long has Mo Qingdi been staying here?" 97 days, a fat Taoist with a horsetail whisk in hand said. "Mo Qingdi was brought here by me." "All right." Sect Master Taichung wore a faint smile as he asked, "Everyone, why don't you guess how many days this child can stay in immeasurable temple?" Mo Qingdi is extremely talented. He has stayed for 97 days, so Fong Yin will naturally stay for more than half a year. That's hard to say. Look at him. He seems to have gained some enlightenment. Perhaps he can return 100 days. I guess. Divine Jizi gritted his teeth and thought that since Fong Yin was his disciple, he definitely had to support him. He said, 2 months is enough. Chapter 8:27. The rain stopped and fell, and the sky brightened and darkened. The clothes on his body were soaked by the rain and dried by the warm wind. The snail on the ground climbed up to his shoes with great difficulty, but it accidentally rolled down and disappeared. Fang Yin had been standing in front of the vat for 7 days. He could not feel the wind and rain, nor could he feel the cold or hunger. His body had entered a very subtle state, like a sleeping bag filled with oxygen, or a room with burning charcoal in a world of ice and snow. It was warm, comfortable, and relaxed. At first, his thoughts were very chaotic. Countless thoughts emerged, and countless information gathered. It was clear who was the enemy and who was the friend. Small-scale fights and large-scale killings emerged one after another. When his head could no longer support itself, when he felt that his body was about to explode, everything quieted down. His mind became a sea of clouds. The white clouds drifted and changed infinitely. Then the scenery suddenly changed, and the sea of clouds turned into a boundless ocean. The ocean was divided into 2 poles, one as black as ink, and the other as white as snow. The black pole and the white pole collided with each other. The black pole wanted to swallow the white pole, and the white pole wanted to assimilate the black pole. The waves were turbulent, and the waves splashed. The 2 big fish were like helpless puppets, pushed to the white pole one moment, and then rolled to the black pole the next. Suddenly, the black pole and the white pole began to spin, and the boundless ocean became a crazily spinning vortex. The vortex spun faster and faster, and finally became a pitch-black black hole that could swallow everything. The wind howled, the rain poured, lightning flashed, and thunder rumbled. The whole world seemed like it was about to collapse. After an unknown period of time, when everything stopped, the world returned to its tranquility. The black and white poles were torn apart, and then they slowly rotated clearly. A big fish was at the black pole, and a big fish was at the white pole. They struggled desperately, trying to break out of the cage, but no matter how hard they tried, they could not meet again. This was the power of nature, the law of the heavenly Tao. When the first ray of morning light cut through the darkness, when the beautiful bird sang its first song, when the flowers bloomed, when the dew dripped on the leaves, Fang Yin finally moved. He crossed his legs and put on an authentic Fang plum blossom stance. He bent his body slightly, opened his arms, and hugged the 2 circles. Then, a set of fluent Fang Tai Chi flowed out continuously. Sometimes it was fast, sometimes it was slow, sometimes it was as light as the clouds, sometimes it was as powerful as a thunderbolt. Sometimes she moved up and down, sometimes she was as still as a virgin. White steam rose from the top of its head, and the water in the tank was boiling. The faster Fang Yin hit, the more violently the water in the vat rolled. From time to time, Pisces would jump out of the water and spit bubbles in the air. Fang Yin sensed the changes in his dantian. The heart of Taiji, which was silent like death at times and burning like fire at other times, once again reacted. It was still hot, even hotter than it had been before. It was as if his abdomen had become a furnace, and that furnace was about to burn a big hole in his stomach. But Fang Yin clearly knew that this was a release. As long as the silent furnace was ignited, the charcoal and the fire energy left in the dantian were completely burned away. The volcano would truly be extinguished. Right now, it was in the process of burning. He was willing to bear this pain because it was benign and had hope. When Fang Yin slowed down his rhythm, the boiling water seemed to freeze, and the active Pisces sank to the bottom. The plum blossom steps were like plum blossoms. As Fang Yin's body moved, countless plum blossoms bloomed. When Fang Yin finished practicing the Feng 19 pads of Taiji and stopped his breathing, the water tank was filled with smoke like a celestial palace. Water overflowed from the vat, and it flowed endlessly. The water overflow state. Fang Yan's eyes were closed, but there was an intoxicated smile on his face. Fang Yan's clothes were not stained with dust. Fang Yan's face was glowing. He was dressed in a green robe and looked handsome, like a banished immortal. At this moment, the worry that the Jiang family was pressing on him disappeared in a flash. and the ruthlessness from his father's tragic death completely disappeared. The sky was bright, and the courtyard was filled with birds and flowers. The snail that disappeared crawled out from the damp corner, and once again headed towards Fong Yan's shoes. Fong Yan opened his eyes. His pupils were clear and pure, and his cheeks were as tender as a baby's, as if he had just been reborn. "Congratulations." An untimely voice suddenly rang out. Fong Yan turned around and looked at his Shifu, Tianjizi, who was standing at the arched door of the courtyard. He bowed 90 degrees to him and sincerely thanked him. "Thank you, Shifu, for giving me a new lease of life. The water overflows endlessly, and the vital energy never ceases." Tianjizi looked at the water tank that was still overflowing and sighed. "You have done something that no one from the Taiji branch has been able to do for hundreds of years. This is a great merit." Fong Yan smiled and said, "I didn't think too much before doing this. I only thought that if I could enter the water overflow state, then I would be able to protect myself and my family better. Small things are big things." Tianjizi stepped into the door and said, "If I can protect myself and my family, then I can protect everyone in the world." Fong Yan smiled and didn't argue with his Shifu about this. He had already said that he wouldn't accept such a heavy responsibility. However, within the scope of his power, he would act against those who were evil, and he would stop those who were attacking. He didn't want to become a famous hero, but he didn't mind being a good person with a sense of justice. Perhaps his name wouldn't be engraved on the stone wall of Swallow Dock, but he would definitely be remembered by his descendants. "There are so many things I didn't expect." Tianjizi looked at Fong Yan. There was surprise in his eyes, but even more shock. "When I first saw you, I didn't expect you to be able to stand here. When you stood here, I didn't expect you to enter the divinity state so quickly. After you entered the divinity state, I didn't expect you to break through so quickly. 7 days. You only used 7 days to face death and come back to life. Your body was cleansed, your thoughts became one, and you obtained the Supreme Tao. Fong Yan, you're the first person in history to do so." Seeing Fong Yan's puzzled expression, Tianjizi smiled and explained, 321 years ago, crazy Taoist priest Jing Xian used 111 days to break the ice. 239 years ago, Swift Sword Scholar used 136 days to solve the puzzle. 167 years ago, Lady Honghua of the Western region used 298 days to melt the ice. 31 years ago, Dragon God MOD used 97 days to comprehend the Tao. A few days ago, everyone was joking and guessing how long you would stay here. Some guessed half a year, some guessed 100 days. Because we are master and disciple, I always have more confidence in you. However, my answer is 2 months. Tianjizi's expression was somewhat self-deprecating. He said, "I didn't expect you to not wake up after entering meditation. I visited every day and waited outside the arched door. It wasn't that I didn't have greater expectations, but I was worried that my expectations would be too high and I would be disappointed. What I didn't expect was that you still succeeded. Furthermore, you only used 7 days." Fong Yan once again bowed to his master, Tianjizi, and said gratefully, "Thank you for your concern and protection, Master. Without you, I wouldn't be where I am today." Tianjizi raised his horsetail whisk and said, "Come with me. The sect master wants to see you." "Yes, Master," Fong Yan answered. The first time Fong Yan saw the sect master of Taichung, he felt a sense of familiarity. After breaking through, he could feel the depth of the sect master of Taichung's cultivation, as well as the neutral and peaceful aura he naturally exuded. This was a kind and benevolent old man with a pair of eyes that could see through everything. Standing in front of him, Fong Yan felt like he was naked and transparent, with no secrets to hide. The old man's eyes were deep and pure. His pupils were black, and the whites of his eyes were as white as paper. There was no yellowish hue, nor were there any traces of blood. His eyes didn't seem like the eyes of an old man. With a gentle smile on his face, the old man looked up and down at Fong Yan, then smiled and said, "Heroes come from the young. This saying is indeed true." Fong Yin knelt down in front of the old man and spoke with a clear voice. "Thank you, sect master. Get up, get up." The old man waved his hand and smiled. "At my age, what I fear the most is people bowing and kowtowing to me. When others kneel, it makes me feel like I'm already very old and won't be able to live much longer. Just look, who wants to have this kind of worry? The sect master has seen through life and death. Why would he care about these superficial things?" The old man shook his head, looked at Fong Yin with a firm gaze, and said, "In this world, are there really people who have seen through life and death?" This question really stumped Fong Yin. Whether it's the peasants, the nobles, or the emperors, or people who practice martial arts like them, who isn't afraid of death, there's no need to think about it. There isn't a single one. Those who say they aren't afraid of death are all liars. They either lie to others or lie to themselves. They are dishonest. Fong Yin nodded and said, "The sect master is right. I am afraid of death. And because I'm afraid of death, I work so hard to improve myself so that I won't be bullied by bad people and not afraid of being killed by bad people. Being afraid of death is also wrong." The sect master corrected Fong Yin's thoughts. Only with loyalty can there be betrayal. Only with insignificance can there be greatness. Only with spring and flowers blooming can there be ice and snow. Only with death can there be life. Being afraid of death and seeking life, this is not a mistake. But if you're only afraid of death, then it's easy to become a coward and lose your backbone. This path is absolutely not to be taken. Fong Yin bowed in acknowledgement and said, "I have learned something." The sect master looked at Fong Yin and said, "You've already reached the water overflow state and become a rare expert in this world. What do you want to do next?" Fong Yin thought about it, then looked at the sect master with an extremely sincere gaze and said with a powerful voice, "Go home and get a wife." Chapter 828. Taiji's water overflow realm was equivalent to the inner world's heavenly Tao realm. Those who could ascend to the heavenly Tao were the cream of the crop in this world. Martial artists were like the vast stars, but those who could ascend to the heavenly Tao realm were like the moon. From the stars surrounding the moon, it was obvious how rare the heavenly Tao realm was. There were very few people in the past few centuries who could ascend to the heavenly Tao at Fong Yin's age. It was inevitable for young people to be arrogant and indulgent. After gaining insights into the great Tao and learning divine powers, they naturally had to fight and roam the world. Years ago, after Mo Qingdi succeeded in ascending to the heavenly Tao realm, he had circled the world before returning. Sect Master Taichung believed that Fong Yin would do the same. After obtaining the highest law of Taiji, he would naturally go out to show his prowess and receive victory and glory. He never expected Fong Yin's answer to be, "Return home to marry a wife." Was this something a young man should say? Was this something an expert who had just gained insight into the water overflow realm should say? Did he still have any desire to improve? Did he even talk about the 8 honors and 8 shames? Sect Master Taichung was taken aback for a moment as he asked with uncertainty, "Did you just say, return home to marry a wife?" "Yes, return home to marry a wife." Fong Yin was a little embarrassed. After all, this was his first time marrying a wife. He grinned and said, "A few days ago, my family arranged a wife for me. The wedding date has also been set. It's this year on the 8th of the 12th lunar month. Sect Master, if you aren't afraid of the hardships, you can come to our Swallow Dock for a wedding. Take it as an early invitation." Sect Master Taichung roared with laughter as he looked at Fong Yin and said, "All right, if it's convenient, I'll head to Swallow Dock for a wedding. I've already forgotten how many years it's been since I've had a drink. I really miss that taste. Other than marriage? Apart from marriage?" Fong Yin thought about it seriously and said, "It should be to treat Grandpa's illness. My grandpa's legs aren't good, and he hasn't been able to get out of his wheelchair for years. My master said that the Taoist's old wood meets spring can cure him, allowing him to stand up again. Now that I've broken through to the water overflow realm, I plan on attempting to treat his legs. If I can let him stand up again, it will mean a lot to me Your filial piety is extremely valuable, the headmaster said with a gratified expression. Fang Yin, watch carefully. As sect master Taichung spoke, he flicked his sleeves across the teacup in front of him. The steaming hot tea instantly froze, as if it had just been taken out of the freezer. Fang Yin widened his eyes and stared unblinkingly at the hierarch's wrist. Let's wait and see, the headmaster of Taichung said. Fang Yin saw a white light flashing in his palm, as if he was holding a lightning bolt in his palm. Sect leader Taichung's sleeves brushed past the bowl of iced tea. The ice instantly melted, and the tea was still steaming. Sect master Tai Chong acted as though he hadn't done anything, but Fang Yin knew that he had done a lot. He had done things that many warriors could not do in their lifetime, including Fang Yin, who had entered the water overflow realm. Do you understand now? Taichung's sect master looked at Fang Yin and asked. Fang Yin nodded, then shook his head. Sect master Taichung smiled and said, Close your eyes. Fang Yin did as he was told. Sect master Taichung's hand brushed past the steaming hot tea, and the tea froze. Then he brushed past the iced tea, and the iced tea melted and emitted steam again. It was exactly the same process as before. Do you understand now? Sect master Tai Chung asked again. Understood. Fang Yin, who had his eyes closed, said aloud. Understanding doesn't mean you understand. Without the sun, how can there be ice? Without death, how can there be life? Without withered wood, how can there be spring? Sect master Tai Chung smiled at Fang Yin. You can understand everything. You were able to comprehend the Grand Tao and break through to the water overflow realm at such a young age, so you will naturally understand the profoundness of withered wood returning to spring. Fang Yin bowed deeply to Sect Master Tai Chung and said gratefully, Thank you, Sect Master. I didn't think you would teach me such an ultimate art. Humans are alive, ultimate arts are dead. Only when a dead ultimate art is in the hands of a living person and it can be used to cure and save people, can it be used to its full potential. Otherwise, a human dying is like an extinguished lamp. No matter how great the ultimate art is, no one can use it. Wouldn't that be a great regret? You are right, Sect Master. Fang Yin bowed again to accept the teachings. In front of this old man, he couldn't make any jokes. Every word he said was something he had to listen to, and after listening, he had to seriously think about it. In the future, Fang Yin will not hide anything. I will teach everything I know to those who can, so that Huaxia's ultimate art can be passed down from generation to generation, so that the flame of martial arts will never be extinguished. Immeasurable Heavenly Lord. Sect Master Tai Chong's face was full of joy. He said, For the best. When Fang Yin came out of Sect Master Tai Chong's room, his master Tian Jizi was waiting in the courtyard. How is it? Tian Jizi asked. Very good. Fang Yin didn't hide his joy in front of Tian Jizi. He said, The Sect Master is a very kind and generous old man. HM? Tian Jizi looked at Fang Yin with a pensive look. He could understand kindness, but what did being generous mean? The Sect Master taught me the withered tree that gives spring. Fang Yin couldn't help but boast. Just like a child who got a beautiful toy, he couldn't help but want to let the people around him know about it. Tian Jizi was overjoyed. He asked, Really? Really? Fang Yin nodded. Tian Jizi's expression was solemn. He looked at Fang Yin and said, The withered tree that gives spring is of great significance to our Taoism. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that it is our Taoism's guardian treasure. Furthermore, this withered tree that gives spring was personally taught by the current sect master. And then, you became the sect master's disciple. Tian Jizi stared at Fang Yin and said, But I am your disciple. Fang Yin said with a determined expression, Regardless of whether the sect master is the sect master or not, I only recognize you as my master. How can I change my master just because of the difference in status? Fang Yin, can't do such a thing, and I don't want to do it. Tian Jizi smiled bitterly and said, But I didn't teach you the withered tree that gives spring. That's right. Why didn't you teach me the withered tree that gives spring? Fang Yin looked at Tianjizi with disdain and said, "We are already master and disciple. Isn't it natural for me to teach my disciple? Look at the sect master. Even though this is the first time we met, he already gave me such a great gift." No wonder the sect master was able to become the sect master. Look at his heart, his spirit. Tianjizi was about to cry from Fang Yan's questions and said, "Other than the sect master, no one else has the right to teach me the withered tree that gives spring." Why? Because the person who obtains the withered tree that gives spring will become the sect master's personal disciple. And after the sect master ascends, the disciple who has the ability to use the withered tree that gives spring will have the chance to become the sect master. Fang Yin opened his eyes wide and said, "In other words, that's right." Tianjizi nodded with absolute certainty. "Even if the sect master hands the entire sect master to you, no one will think that it's something surprising." Fang Yin was stunned for a long time, then turned around and walked into the room. "What are you doing?" Tianjizi asked. "I'm going to see if there's anything else master needs me to serve. I'm very good at serving tea and pouring water," Fang Yin said aloud. Tianjizi felt like his heart was being cut by a knife. "Didn't you say that you, Fang Yin, definitely wouldn't do such a thing, and you don't want to do it? Just what exactly are you doing right now?" Behind the red wall, the old man was leisurely drinking tea. At their level of cultivation and status, there was no longer a need to hone their muscles and bones. Instead, it was more about enlightenment. 1,000 years passed in a blink of an eye. Sometimes a single enlightenment could surpass countless predecessors. This was the power of the heavenly axiom. Gong Sun Shi's leg injury had completely healed, and he was practicing the sword-drawing technique under the watchful eyes of his master. The last mission had made him realize his own shortcomings. A great teacher produces a great disciple. He had a master like the Dragon God, and he himself was talented and intelligent, so he would definitely be the #1 expert of the younger generation. But what made him ashamed was that in that dense forest, his partner Fang Yan's performance was far better than his. Whether it was his ability to adapt on the spot, his ability to fight on the battlefield, or his perseverance and fearlessness of death, they were all beyond his reach. It could be said that if it weren't for Fang Yan's extraordinary performance, the two of them would have died in that devil's forest. The most unacceptable thing was that he was carried out of the forest by Fang Yan. This would be the shame of his life. After his physical recovery, Gong Sun Shi entered an intense period of physical recovery and hard training. He hoped that he could have a greater improvement in the shortest time possible. With a goal, one would be more motivated. "Let's stop for a while." He held the teacup and shouted. Gong Sun Shi drew his sword and then sheathed it. It was unbelievably fast, and one could not hear any sound of metal colliding during the process. Gong Sun Shi placed the sword on the sword rack and pulled a towel to wipe the sweat on his forehead. "Your opponent is Fang Yan?" The Dragon God looked at his beloved disciple and asked. Gong Sun Shi was not without talent, nor was it because he did not work hard. At his age, he had achieved such achievements in swordsmanship. It was indeed amazing. However, when comparing goods, one had to throw them away. When comparing oneself to others, it was infuriating. Yes, Gong Sun Shi did not hide his ambition in front of his master. "I want to surpass him. It's very difficult," the Dragon God said expressionlessly. "Master." Gong Sun Shi's face was ashen. He was not angry that his master said he was not as good as Fang Yan, but he knew very well that if his master said it would be difficult for him to surpass Fang Yan, it might really be difficult for him to surpass Fang Yan. "His opponent is me," the Dragon God said with a smile. "In other words, I am the opponent he must defeat in the end." Chapter 829. Although Gong Sun Shi acknowledged Fang Yan's ability and felt that he was not just slightly better than him, he still found it hard to accept comparing Fang Yan to his most respected master, the Divine Dragon. "Master, what makes Fang Yan worthy of being your opponent?" Gong Sun Shi asked bluntly. "I know his skills. He's just a little stronger than me. The difference between me and Master is more than 1,000 miles. Compared to Master, he's like a grain of rice competing with the moon. He's just asking to be humiliated. Ku Fengming knew how his disciple felt. He originally thought that Fang Yin was his destined opponent, an enemy that he strived to defeat. And he had always been working hard for this goal. But now, he was telling him that it would be difficult for him to surpass Fang Yin, and that Fang Yan's opponent would be him. It was really a blow to him. I've received news that Fang Yin has obtained the Taiji diagram's heritage and has just broken through to the water overflow realm. Ku Fengming said casually, as if it was something unimportant. The water overflow is the highest esoteric of Taiji. It's similar to the heavenly Tao realm. Once he enters the realm, he'll be on the golden path. His future is limitless. What? Gong Sun Chi was shocked. How is that possible? How long has it been? How old is he? It was no wonder Gong Sun Chi was so shocked. They had just returned from a mission. At that time, Fang Yin was not too far away from him. The two of them stood on the same starting line and sprinted forward. His injured leg had just recovered, and his opponent had already stepped into another realm. It was impossible for him to catch up to Fang Yan's footsteps. He could only look up at Fang Yan's tall back. It was a feeling that made him feel helpless. A night of enlightenment can lead to a leap of 1,000 miles. How can you look at people with old eyes? Ku Fengming reprimanded. Now that he's finally grown into a towering tree, the feud between me and the Fang family will finally be continued and inherited. He wants to challenge Master. No, I want to challenge him. Shen Long said bitterly. I've been trapped in this red wall for too long. I just want to find a chance to move. But my old friends are all mysterious and hard to find. Fortunately, Fang Yin came out and gave me some motivation to move. Fang Yin had just reached the water overflow realm and was full of confidence and fighting spirit. Go meet him on my behalf and set a date for the battle. I think he'll accept. Master, even if Fang Yin breaks through to the water overflow state, he's still no match for you. Gong Sun Chi looked at his master and wanted to speak up for Fang Yin. After all, Fang Yin carried him out from the Devil Forest. When he first met Fang Yin, he felt that Fang Yin was a bastard. During that mission, he felt that Fang Yin was a good person who was a bastard. He could have left on his own. He didn't have to bring her along, but he didn't give up on her, no matter how dangerous and difficult the process of their escape was. Challenging Fang Yin at this time is an unfair fight. Why don't we give him more time? In your opinion, the longer you live, the higher your cultivation will be? Kuoming shook his head with a wry smile and said, It depends on luck, will, and ambition. This was the key to victory. Of course, the strength of both sides had to be evenly matched, and the difference couldn't be too great. Don't say anything more, just do as I say. Yes, master, Gong Sun Chi replied helplessly. Just as he was about to pack up and leave, Qing Niao pushed open the door of the small courtyard and walked in. She glanced at Gong Sun Chi, then walked straight to the front of the Dragon God and said, Mr. Dragon God, Fang Yin is here and wants to see you. Fang Yin is here? Gong Sun Chi asked anxiously. He had just been talking to his master about Fang Yin and was thinking of ways to help him reject his master challenge. Who would have thought that Fang Yin would come knocking on his door? Did he really think that he could do whatever he wanted after entering the water overflow state? Did he think that he could challenge his own master just like that? What an arrogant fellow. Yes. Qing Yao looked back at Gong Sun Chi, not understanding why he was so agitated. Fang Yin has just met the young chief and wants to see Mr. Dragon God after this. Kuoming nodded and said, Fang Yin has broken through to the water overflow state, so the country should pay attention. Invite him in. Yes. Qing Yao turned and left, and soon brought Fang Yin in. When Gong Sun Chi saw Fang Yin again, he found that his image and aura had indeed changed greatly. In the past, Fang Yin spoke and laughed casually, but when he was angry, he was sharp and aggressive. Moreover, his behavior was not mature enough, and he always gave off the feeling that he was trying his best to take advantage of others. Now, Fang Yin was handsome, refreshing, and looked like a beautiful landscape painting. The way he walked was elegant. The way he smiled was charming, and even if he did not say a word, people could feel his inner self-restraint and unfathomable cultivation base. Now, Fang Yin looked more amiable, but when you wanted to bully him, There was an oppressive feeling of having nowhere to exert force and being guarded against everywhere. Fang Yin, what are you doing here? Gong Sun Chi blocked in front of his master and desperately winked at Fang Yin. Hurry up and get lost, or it will be too late. Fang Yin understood Gong Sun Chi's intentions. After that life and death experience together, he also regarded Gong Sun Chi as his own brother. However, some words had to be said, and some things had to be done. Only by following one's heart could one achieve great things. The water overflow state was even more particular about naturalness. Challenging the dragon god and avenging the azure dragon's humiliation was the most persistent belief in his heart, and it was also the mission he wanted to complete the most. The old drunkard was not here, and challenging the dragon god had become his destiny. He would not run away, and he could not run away. I'm here to issue a challenge. Fang Yin looked directly at the dragon god's tough life and said with a smile, "It's a long-cherished wish of many years. I hope that the dragon god will be born first." The azure dragon turned pale with fright. She did not expect that Fang Yin would take the initiative to challenge the dragon god. Ever since the dragon god entered the Red Wall and became the Xian department's high priest, no one had dared to challenge him. Fang Yin actually dared to do such a thing. Naturally, the dragon god laughed, looked at Fang Yin and said, "Fang Yin, are you so confident that you can defeat me after entering the water overflow state?" "I'm not confident," Fang Yin said very frankly, "but I know that I'm in my best condition now. I don't know what the future holds, and I don't know how far I can grow. But I feel that my body is in great shape. It's like I can kill a tiger with a punch, and I can knock down a mountain with a kick." Mr. Dragon God has been famous for a long time, and his cultivation base is unfathomable. But I can't wait, and I can't afford to wait. Because I know that when I'm training hard, Mr. Dragon God is also improving. I can't wait until you're too old to swing your fist or pick up your sword before I challenge you. This is an insult to you, and an insult to me as well. It's also an insult to the old drunkard. If he knew that I did something like that, he would definitely scold me. Exchanging pointers in martial arts requires luck, courage, and willpower. I have the will to fight. I have the courage to die rather than retreat, and the rest is up to luck. My luck has never been bad, and people with bad luck would not be able to enter the water overflow state at this age, so I want to take a gamble. When I feel that I'm the strongest, I want to challenge you. Gong Sun Chi stared at Fang Yin, dumbfounded, and thought to himself, this kid said the same thing as Master just said. Courage, will, and luck. That's what Master said just now. He looked at his disciple Gong Sun Chi and said, "Now do you understand the difference between you two?" Gong Sun Chi's face was ashen. Who would insult his own disciple's master in front of others like this? However, Gong Sun Chi could not be bothered to be angry over such a matter. He was burning with anxiety. His master was a famous Heavenly Tao realm expert for many years, and Fang Yin was considered a top expert who had entered the water overflow state. In a battle with such an opponent, he would either be injured or dead, and it would be very difficult to show mercy. Moreover, because the Azure Dragon did not underestimate his enemy, Fang Yin would definitely attack with hatred. When that happened, the two of them would not rest until one of them was dead. Gong Sun Chi did not wish for his master to lose, but he did not wish for his friend to die either. In his heart, he still felt that Fang Yin, who had just entered the water overflow state, was no match for his unfathomable master. The dragon god looked at Fang Yin with a gratified expression and said, "That's how a man should be. I accept your challenge." "Thank you, Mr. Dragon God." Fang Yin bowed in thanks. When he straightened his body, he looked at the dragon god and asked, "What time does Mr. Dragon God think is suitable?" "Time is of the essence." Kiraming waved his hand casually. "As long as it's convenient for you, I'll accompany you anytime." "How about 7 days later?" Fang Yin said. "Why are you in such a hurry? I'm getting married on the 8th of the 12th lunar month, so it's best if we spar before the wedding. That way, if I die, the lady still has a chance to remarry. Don't you think so?" Fang Yin was still a little selfish. He was afraid that it would be tough for him to challenge the dragon god after marriage. If he lost his life, wouldn't Yi Ro become a widow? Therefore, he put the final battle before their wedding. In this way, if he accidentally died, Yi Ro would still be a virgin, and she could still marry another handsome young man. He would feel a little uncomfortable in his heart, but as long as Yi Ro was happy, it would be fine. Kiraming laughed out loud and said, "Interesting. How interesting. We'll do as you say. 7 days later, we'll fight at Feng Mountain." The time was set by Feng Yin, so he had no objections to Kiraming's choice of location. "It's a promise," Feng Yin said firmly. 7 days later, we'll fight at Feng Mountain. Chapter 830. Feng Yin left, and Gong Sun Chi offered to walk him out. Under Qing Niao's stare, as if she was looking a lunatic, the two walked towards the side door outside the red wall. "Are you crazy?" Before they got far, Gong Sun Chi couldn't help but complain. "Do you know what you're doing?" "I know." Challenging one of the 3 dragons of Huaxia, the dragon god, Feng Yin had a calm smile on his face. Gong Sun Chi didn't like this kind of expression. In the past, Feng Yin's smile was very cunning and proud, like a fox that took advantage of others. Gong Sun Chi felt even more friendly towards this kind of smile. At this time, he looked very mysterious, and no one knew what he was thinking. He was not down to earth, and naturally made people feel distant. His smile was like a constant reminder that he was now a water overflow state master, and this was the expression of a water overflow state master. "You'll die." Gong Sun Chi stared at Feng Yin's smiling face and said fiercely. Feng Yin looked at Gong Sun Chi and asked, "You also think I'm no match for your master? Don't you know that you're no match for him? Do you still need to ask other people's feelings about this?" Feng Yin nodded and said, "Your master has been famous for a long time, and his cultivation is unfathomable. What's more terrifying is that no one has fought him for the past 10 years, and no one knows how much he has grown. Against such a master, I really don't have any chance of winning." "Then why do you still want to do this? You can choose not to do it, or you can do it later." Gong Sun Chi anxiously tried to dissuade him. It was obvious that he was really thinking about Feng Yin's safety. Feng Yin stopped, looked at Gong Sun Chi with sincere eyes, and said, "In the past, I thought the same as you. I can choose not to do it, or I can do it later. Why do something that I have no confidence in? Why do something that disregards your own safety? I'm going to get married, and I really like the woman I'm going to marry. I want to be with her every day, and we'll have several children. That's my ideal life." Gong Sun Chi didn't say anything. He just quietly waited for Feng Yin to continue. "But I can't now," Feng Yin said with a smile. "I stood in front of a huge vat for a long time and thought about many things. There were many contradictory ideas, and those contradictory laws collided and killed each other. One side triumphed over the other, just like one country triumphed over another. I became the king of the victorious kingdom. I comprehended the heavenly Tao and stepped into the doorstep of the water overflow state. However, once you enter that realm, there's no turning back. It's just like when you become the king of a kingdom, you can no longer step down by yourself, because once you lose the protection of that position, you may be killed by the rebels. You can only brace yourself and continue forward, no matter what you encounter in front of you. You have to walk forward bravely and fearlessly. You also know about the grudge between the dragon god and the one in my family. In the battle between the two, the one in my family suffered a crushing defeat, and because his meridians were cut, he became a cripple. I grew up with him, and almost my entire life was spent with him. I could see how miserable his life was, and I could feel how sorrowful his heart was. He ate wine every day and slept with wine. That kind of life would have been better off dead. If he had died in that battle, at least he would have maintained the illustrious reputation of the Azure Dragon. However, it didn't die and was still stubbornly living on. When everyone mentions the Azure Dragon's name, they would sigh in regret, saying that a heavenly son of heaven was destroyed in a day, but in their hearts, they were mocking his current situation. Most people would just ignore him when they saw him. Who would care about the opinion of a cripple? Can you imagine? How did he survive such a life? The Feng family is few in number, with only one son for several generations. Back when grandfather was healthy, he had dozens of disciples, and it was considered a formidable force. Later, grandfather's legs were crippled, and most of his disciples left, never to be heard from again. There were a few who stayed, but they didn't have the ability to prop up the Fong family. After the old drunkard ascended the heavenly Tao, the Fong family's reputation changed greatly. However, when he perished and became a cripple, he would receive 10 times, 100 times more mockery and blows than before. My father was killed at the entrance of the village. I was one step too late. If I had arrived earlier, I would have been able to save him. Because of this thought, I stayed in Swallow Dock to observe mourning for my father for 3 years. I felt too guilty, and I blamed myself. But what was the old drunkard thinking? If his tendons hadn't been cut by your master, if he was still a heavenly Tao expert, would my father not have died? Would the Fong family not be in such a difficult situation? After my father died, he disappeared. According to the medical fanatic, he went to find some ice dragon's blood to replenish his meridians. I don't believe that such a thing exists in this world, but I hope that he does, because if that's the case, he will return. Otherwise, with his stubborn temper and proud character, he would rather be buried in that land of extreme cold than return. I always wanted to do something for him. Challenging the divine dragon was an arduous task. In the past, I only dared to think about it in secret, and was even too embarrassed to say it out loud. I was afraid that your master would hear me and kill me with his sword. I always thought, I don't believe that I can't catch up to you. I don't believe that you won't grow old. You won't grow weak. You won't die. That became a demon in my heart, a thorn in my side. In front of that huge vat, I understood. If I had fear in my heart, I would never be able to defeat your master. I would never be able to avenge the old drunkard. The Tao of man is the heavenly Tao. If you go against your own thoughts, then you will be going against the heavenly Tao. Not only will your cultivation level not improve, you might even regress, because you have a mental demon. So, you were able to ascend to the overflow realm because you made up your mind to challenge my master? Gong Sun Chi asked. No. Fong Yin shook his head. I was able to ascend to the overflowing state because my thoughts were clear. I understood the things that I couldn't understand before. I made my final decision on the things that had always made me waver. Of course, the reason I challenged your master was also to make my thoughts clear. If I don't do this, if I keep thinking about postponing and refusing, then I will eventually lose the courage and opportunity to challenge him. I understand. Gong Sun Chi thought for a while, then looked at Fong Yin and said, I won't give you my blessing. I understand. Fong Yin nodded. He patted Gong Sun Chi's shoulder and said, I'm already very grateful that you chased after me and told me this. But Gong Sun Chi thought for a bit and said, I don't want you to fail either. Fong Yin squinted his eyes and smiled, then turned around and left. Clear thoughts. Gong Sun Chi looked at Fong Yan's elegant back and muttered, Master wanted to battle you because he wanted his thoughts to be clear. You came to challenge my master because you wanted your thoughts to be clear. But do you know that the way you are doing it is making it hard for my thoughts to be clear? The news that Fong Yin wanted to challenge the dragon god spread to a certain group of people in Beijing very quickly. Is that kid crazy? Why would he dare to challenge the divine dragon? A horse doesn't know what's good for him. With his mediocre skills, he dares to challenge the 3 dragons of Huaxia? He's far from it. Hee. There's going to be a good show. The heavenly Tao realm expert who destroyed the Fong family years ago, Mo Qinglong, probably won't show any mercy this time, right? There's a lot of discussion, but no one believed that Fong Yin could defeat the divine dragon and become the final winner of this battle. The Jiang family mansion. Jiang Shifu looked at his grandson, General Xing, who was sitting in front of him, and said, It seems like the news is true. A few old friends in the martial world called me, and Tigress also has some connections. That brat really went to challenge the dragon god. General Xing grinned. Grandpa, what's there to be afraid of? Isn't this good news for us? Since Fong Yin took the initiative to issue a challenge to Mr. Dragon God, only death awaits him. If Fong Yin dies or gets injured by Mr. Dragon God's hands, our Jiang family will be able to reap the benefits. Previously, the Fong family's Mo Qingdi was crippled by Mr. Dragon God after his tendons were broken, and the Fong family was bullied and humiliated. Until now, they have not recovered. If something like this happens again, it will not be anything new. Have you thought about it? Jiang Shifu looked at General Xing with a serious expression and said, "Why does Fong Yin want to challenge the Divine Dragon? What makes him think that he can challenge the Divine Dragon? You've interacted with him many times. Do you think he's crazy? Or is there something wrong with his IQ?" I've heard General Xing knew that the old man in front of him was angry, so he toned down his attitude and said, "Fong Yin broke through the water overflow state and became a powerhouse that can compete with the Heavenly Path state. If he didn't do this and didn't challenge the Divine Dragon, our Jiang family would have to adjust our attitude towards him. However, he's courting death by challenging Mr. Dragon. How could he be Mr. Dragon's opponent? Strangling talents is exactly what Mr. Dragon God likes to do." "What if?" Jiang Shifu asked. "What?" General Xing did not understand the meaning behind his grandfather's words. If Fong Yin defeats the Divine Dragon, if Fong Yin wins this battle, Jiang Shifu looked at General Xing with a sharp gaze and asked, "Have you thought about what the Jiang family should do when that happens?" Chapter 831. General Xing looked at his grandfather with a pensive look and said, "Grandfather, are you worried about Fong Yin, the threat he might bring to the Jiang family? One lives in sorrow and perishes in peace." General Shifu did not hide his thoughts as he said, "Try your best to think of every possibility so that we won't panic when the time comes. If we don't understand the danger Fong Yin poses, as well as the immense influence a heavenly Dao realm expert can bring, it will be a true disaster for our Jiang family. Grandfather, even if he reaches the water overflow realm, he won't be able to live for long. You also know that he just challenged the Divine Dragon and lived a tough life. In a week, he will perish. When that happens, is there a need for us to worry about a dead person? Or perhaps, just as grandfather worries, Fong Yin managed to survive after defeating the Divine Dragon. Could he be so lawless as to unleash a massacre on our Jiang family? The Jiang family is not their Fong family. If they dare do such a thing, it will cause a stir in the entire Yin capital. How can such a responsibility be borne by a heavenly Dao realm expert? That's not the only thing I'm worried about. The Fong family doesn't just have one heavenly Dao realm expert, but two. Fong Yin is about to marry the Yi family, and the Yi family's Yi one is also a heavenly Dao realm expert. If they were to really get married, how would the Jiang family fare?" General Xing said with a wry smile. Before it began, no one expected such a thing to happen. Back then, the Fong family could not withstand a single blow, and they thought that they were only devouring a sheep. But no one expected that their Fong family's heavenly Dao realm expert would appear like bamboo shoots after a spring rain. The sheep tore off its disguise and turned into a ferocious wolf that counterattacked. General Xing looked at General Shifu and said, "Grandfather, you never expected such a thing to happen, right?" General Shifu pondered for a long while before saying, "Do you have any good countermeasures?" "The enemy of our enemy is our friend," General Xing said in a deep voice. "The arrow has been shot, and there's no turning back. Regret is unnecessary, and an apology won't be of any use. Now, our Jiang family and Fong Yin are in an irreconcilable situation. Now that things have come to this, we can only place our bets on the Dragon God's side." Jiang Shifu thought for a while, then said, "Help me make an appointment with the Dragon God. It's been hard on my life. Just tell him that I want to treat him to Chai's flatbread." "Okay." General Xing nodded. "Grandpa, I'm afraid there's one more person that you have to meet in person." "HM?" Jiang Shifu looked thoughtfully at General Xing. He had lived in seclusion for many years, taking care of the flowers and plants in this courtyard. If it wasn't an important matter, he wouldn't meet anyone easily. Moreover, after so many years, the number of people he had met could be counted on one hand. General Xing should understand his habits, but he said that there was someone he had to see. What kind of person was that? "Grandfather." General Xing's eyes were filled with determination as he looked at Jiang Shifu and said, "We cannot lose this battle. This is very good." Jiang Shifu looked at his grandson with a gratified expression and said, I believe in you. Then I'll get to work. The general stood up and said, I've asked Mr. Dragon God to come over for some pancakes tomorrow night. He probably won't reject me. Go. Old man Jiang Shifu waved his hand and said, Be careful. Don't alert anyone. I understand. General Xing nodded. At this time, the Jiang family's elderly man and Dragon God were to meet. If Dragon God really killed or crippled Fang Yin after the battle, it would be bad for the Jiang family's reputation. However, General Xing didn't think that this was a bad thing. If Dragon God killed or crippled Fang Yin after meeting his grandfather, how would the outside world view this matter? Yes, it would have a bad impact on the Jiang family's reputation. They might even suspect that the Jiang family was the mastermind. However, shouldn't those people be fearful of the Jiang family because of this? If they could link the Dragon God's hard work with the Jiang family, that would be the best. After Jiang, Junling walked far away. The tigress returned to the elderly man. Old master. The tigress stood respectfully in front of the elderly man. Make a trip to Huaqing and meet Shangxin personally. Tell her that I miss her and ask her to visit when she has the time. Old man Jiang Shifu said. The tigress looked at old man Jiang with a surprised expression. She didn't expect him to make such a decision. Old man Jiang Shifu's expression was calm, but his voice was a little sad. He said, The Jiang family's younger generation is incompetent. The last chance to break out of this situation may lie on Shangxin alone. Yes, I will definitely tell Miss Shangxin about old master's longing. The tigress bowed and replied. However, she felt a little sour in her heart. The majestic and incomparably huge Jiang family had actually reached the stage where they needed to prepare a backup plan. You actually want to challenge Dragon God? Yi Daoling's face was full of anger as he asked directly. He didn't even invite him to take a seat and instruct the servants to pour him tea. Fang Yin stood in the living room of Yi Daoling's house and looked at the withered ginkgo tree in the courtyard. He smiled and said, Yes, I didn't expect the news to spread so quickly. Fang Yin, do you know what you are doing? Yi Daoling wanted to throw the teacup in his hand at him. You're challenging Dragon God, Dragon God. I don't need to say what kind of opponent Dragon God is. You know this better than me. Also, after he defeated your senior brother, Imo, Qingdi decades ago, everyone in the world thought that he was the #1 expert in Huaxia. Even the mysterious black dragon wasn't his match. Why did you find such an opponent? Yizi sat beside her father and looked at Fang Yin with her beautiful eyes without blinking. This guy is actually an expert in the water overflow state. He was always smiling. He was cynical, and he was always beaten to death by his sister. However, he was humorous, knowledgeable, filial, and loyal. His friends were willing to die for him. He was attentive and cared for his family. He worked hard to protect his family and did not hesitate to fight to the death to protect his family. Such a man was about to become her brother-in-law. Hearing that her father's temper was out of control, Yizi finally came back to her senses. She hugged her father's arm and signaled him not to damage his body. Yizi looked at Fang Yin and said, Fang Yin, don't mind him. My dad is doing this for your own good. If it was someone else, he wouldn't be so angry. Yes, yes. Ruan Jing nodded repeatedly and said, If it was me, the boss wouldn't be so angry. Yizi glared at Ruan Jing and signaled him not to talk nonsense. Then she looked back at Fang Yin and said, You are going to marry my sister. How can you still do such a dangerous thing? If there's an accident, what will my sister do? Yi Daoling also knew that his temper was too bad. After being comforted by his daughter, his mood was much better. Yi Daoling looked at Fang Yin and said, Fang Yin, don't blame me for being too strict with you. We are a family now. Say whatever you want. There's no need to hide it like before. I always thought you were a smart person, the smartest person in the entire Swallow Dock. But I have to say that your choice this time is very unwise and disappointing. Yes, I know you entered the water overflow state, but do you think you can definitely defeat the Dragon God's hard work just because you entered the water overflow state? You have the heart to avenge the enemy. This is very good and admirable. But can't you bear it a little longer? Wait a little longer? You have endured for so many years and waited. Why can't you wait a few days? Can't you wait a few years? You have achieved such achievements at such a young age. Your future is limitless. No one knows how far you can go in the future. What is the path after the heavenly path? What is the next realm after the water overflow state? When you find the answers to these questions, then challenge the dragon god's hard work. Isn't the success rate higher? You are playing with your life. Not only are you using your life to play with others, but you also don't care about Wenruru's happiness in the future. Now everyone in the world knows that you and Yururu are going to get married, and the invitations have been sent out. In the end, a few days before the marriage, you ran to fight with your life. It will be fine if you won. The key is that you will die if you fight with your life. At that time, what about Aruru? Will she get married in the future? I know it's not good. Fong Yin looked at Yi Dowling and apologized sincerely. I know it's wrong. I'm sorry to many people, my family, Yi family, and the person I'm most sorry to is Wenru. But I also have a reason to do this. What reason do you have to do this? I'm afraid that if I don't do it this time, I won't be able to do it in the future. Fong Yin said with a smile. At least, this is the time that I feel the best about myself, and the time that I'm most likely to succeed. Why do you think you can defeat the #1 master of Huaxia? Based on my feelings, Fong Yin said with a smile. I don't think I can definitely win. I just feel that there's a chance of winning. Fong Yin, Yi Dowling looked at Fong Yin sharply and said, If you agree, I can find a way to help you cancel this battle. Absolutely not. Fong Yin looked at Yi Dowling and said, Morale cannot be lost. So you're determined to do this? Have you discussed it with Wenruru? Does she agree with you to do such a dangerous thing? She didn't discuss it with me. The courtyard door was pushed open, and a girl in black strode in. Chapter 832. It was getting colder and colder in Yanjing. The weather forecast said that the first snow of the year would come in a few days. Of course, the weather forecast didn't specify which day it was. After all, it wasn't easy for them. Her long hair and clothes fluttered in the wind. Even if she didn't wear any makeup, people could still feel her breathtaking beauty. Yi Ro's temperament was very calm, but her face gave people a feeling of coldness. She was like an iceberg, beautiful, but always made people worry that she was cold to the bone and not close to the people. Of course, compared with her, Qini Tian was even less close to the people. Qini Tian was very warm, but too warm. Her beauty was like the sun in the hottest days, with millions of golden rays, without any concealment, and without mercy, and scrupulously burning the earth in people's eyes. But why did Yi Ro come at this time? Seeing Yi Ro coming, Yezi quickly ran to greet her, took the initiative to hold Yi Ro's arm, and said with a smile, Sister, you're here. I knew you would come. Only you can stop Fong Yin. Yi Dowling also grinned, looked at Yi Ro and said, Ro is here? Did Yezi call you? Quickly persuade Fong Yin not to do such a stupid thing. Isn't it good to have a good birthday? There is no need to make things difficult for yourself. Yi Ro walked straight to Fong Yin, looked at Fong Yin and asked, You want to challenge the dragon god? Fong Yin looked straight into Yi Ro's eyes, nodded and said, Yes, I have to fight. Why didn't you discuss it with me in advance? I was afraid you wouldn't agree. Why 7 days before the wedding? I was afraid I would die. Yi Ro stopped talking, and her beautiful eyes stared at Fong Yin without blinking, as if she wanted to see how many hairs there were on his face. Go back with me, Yi Ro said expressionlessly. Okay. Fong Yin nodded. So, Yi Ro took Fong Yin's hand and turned to leave. Fong Yin smiled at Yezi and followed Yi Ro out of the Yi family's courtyard. Yi Dowling and Yezi were stunned. Yi Dowling looked at Yezi and asked, Just like that? Just like that? Yezi nodded. Just like that? Yes. Why did they leave? Is the problem solved? I don't know. It should be solved. Sister Ro is here. According to her character, she will definitely not agree to this matter. Besides, Fong Yin can't beat Sister Ro. At most, he can break his legs. Yi Dowling rubbed the rim of his cup in annoyance and said, Even if you want to leave, shouldn't you tell me? No matter what, I'm still their elder. Aren't they not behaving like juniors at all? Yi nodded fiercely and echoed, Yes, it's too much. Yi Dowling looked at Yi with a face full of smiles and said, My own daughter is still the best. It seems that only us, father and daughter, will be eating at home today. I'll ask the kitchen to make a few more dishes. Let's drink the remaining half bottle of Maodai. I can't bear to drink it when you are not at home. Dad, I can't accompany you for lunch today. Yezi said with embarrassment. I want to go back to Swallow Dock. Ancestor called me yesterday and said that she misses me. She asked me to go back to see her. I also want to see whether Sister Ruru has intercepted Fang Yen. How about letting Ruan Jing eat with you at home? I'm willing to eat with the chief. Ruan Jing tried hard to force a smile on his face and said, but Yezi, it's not safe to drive back alone, right? How about I drive her back to Swallow Dock? Get lost. Yi Dowling slammed the cup on the tea table and waved his hand. Get lost. Dad, I will go back to accompany Ancestor. I will say hello to Ancestor for you. Yezi stuck out her tongue and ran outside quickly. Ruan Jing looked at Yi Dowling carefully and said, You are the chief. You told me to get lost. I can't disobey the order, can I? After that, she ran outside like a rabbit. Yi Dowling looked at the empty house and suddenly felt a little lonely. He thought about it and grabbed the landline next to him to call his wife. Come back after work at noon? The child is not at home. Let's go out to eat something good. Yi Ro drove, and Fang Yin sat in the passenger seat. Yi Ro didn't speak, and Fang Yin also remained silent. There was a song playing in the car, a song that sounded a little sad. If it's too late before dark, go and forget your eyes, spend a lifetime, can't finish a dream, waking up from a dream. This life is absurd, South Mountain. North Autumn is sad, South Mountain has a pile of grain, South Wind whispers. North Sea has a tombstone. This song is very nice. Fang Yin broke the silence and said with a smile, although it sounds sad, the feelings in it are very sincere. There is a couple in love. The man lives in North Sea and the woman lives in South Mountain. They're in a long-distance relationship. One day, the man told the woman that he likes someone else and wants to break up with the woman. The woman was heartbroken, but she still accepted the arrangement. The man didn't fall in love with another woman. He was just sick. It was a genetic disease in his family. At this time, it was difficult for him to even breathe. Few of his family lived past 30 years old, and it was difficult for him to break this curse. He was about to die. He didn't want to drag that woman down because he felt that he couldn't give him happiness. Yiro said calmly, as if she was telling a story. Of course, she was indeed telling a story. And then? Fang Yin was attracted by Yiro's story and asked, There is no then. Yiro said. Fang Yin was anxious and said, How can you do this? How can there be a story without an ending? Are you a eunuch? Are you touched? Yiro ignored Fang Yin's doubt and asked. Yes. Fang Yin nodded. I am touched. That man is too great. What about that woman? Yiro asked. Woman? Fang Yin thought for a while and said, He has a woman who loves him very much, and Fang Yin couldn't continue. He understood the deeper meaning of Yiro's story. Do you think that woman will be grateful after knowing the truth? Will she thank that man for hiding it from her? Will she thank that man for letting her go? Gentle, afraid that I would be worried and would challenge the dragon god without discussing with me. Worried that I would be a widow. So he specially chose the date of the battle 7 days before the wedding. Shouldn't I be moved like that woman? I didn't do it for you. That man didn't do it to make that woman feel touched. Maybe he thought that was the way he could give her happiness. I just thought that if I couldn't come back, you would still have a chance. A chance to marry someone else. Fang Yin remained silent. He couldn't have an answer to such a question. Is this the Yiro in your eyes? I know you won't choose that, but I hope you can choose that. Fang Yin said in a low voice. Since the battle with the dragon god was a foregone conclusion, there were some things that needed to be clarified. I have a reason to fight, but you also have an excuse to give up. I know there are some things that you aren't looking forward to, but standing in my shoes, it doesn't mean that I won't do it just because you don't look forward to it. Kacha! Yiro suddenly turned the steering wheel, and the car sped towards the wheat field by the side of the road. When they reached the depths of the wheat field, Yiro slammed on the brakes, and the car came to a screeching halt. Yiro turned to look at Fang Yin and said, I'm also at the heavenly Tao realm. I can completely understand why you made such a decision. The arrow is knocked on the bow, and has to be fired. But shouldn't you discuss it with me before making such a decision? You said that you didn't discuss it with me beforehand because you were worried that I wouldn't agree to it. But even if I didn't agree to it, since you had already decided to do it, all I could do was support you. I wouldn't let you give up because I knew that you definitely wouldn't back out. Since I was certain that you wouldn't back out, why did you say such words to dampen your resolve? You chose to have the duel 7 days before our wedding. If you were to unfortunately die in battle, I wouldn't need to marry a dead person. Yi Ro would still be a free person. Yi Ro's eyes were filled with intense sorrow. She looked at Fang Yin and said, "My body is free, but what about my heart?" Fang Yin, if you were to die in battle, do you think I would still be able to walk away without any worries? Fang Yin, let me tell you my stance. Human Tao follows the heavenly Tao, and the heavenly Tao is the Tao of the heart. I won't stop you from fighting the divine dragon with your life. If this can make one's thoughts clear, then I have no choice but to do so. Just like how I couldn't sever my ties when I climbed the heavenly Tao, I'd rather not step into the heavenly Tao because my ties are with you. If you're injured in this battle, then we can fight again after you return to recuperate. If you were to die in this battle, I'll wear white and challenge the divine dragon to avenge you. If I win, then the divine dragon will die. If I lose, then I'll die with you. Although we're not married yet, we're already engaged. From the day you went to the Yi family to send the betrothal gifts, we're a family. Life and death are bound together, a promise made to my son. Holding my son's hand, we'll grow old together. These words are not written to be read, not spoken, but to be fulfilled with the rest of my life. If you're alive, I'll be your wife. If you're dead, I'll still be your wife. If you're alive, we'll work together to revitalize the Fong family. If you're dead, I'll take care of Grandpa and Mother for you. Except for Fang Yin, no other man can enter my eyes. Chapter 833. If you're injured in this battle, then I will wait for you to come back and recuperate before fighting again. If you die in this battle, I will wear a white robe and challenge the dragon god to avenge you. With such a loving and capable wife, what else can I hope for in life? Fang Yin was moved to tears. He opened his arms and wanted to hug the torturous little goblin, Yi Ro, into his arms. Fang Yin's body seemed to have encountered an invisible qi wall. His head was bounced off by the qi wall, but his body couldn't get close to Yi Ro at all. Fang Yin looked at Yi Ro, who was close at hand but difficult to approach, and said with a smile, "Ro, what are you doing? Come, let your husband hug you." "But I'm still very angry," Yi Ro said while looking at the wheat sprouts in the wilderness. Those wheat sprouts were shivering in the cold wind, and so was Fang Yin's body. Fang Yin felt the danger and looked at the woman who was about to become his wife with vigilance. He asked in a low voice, "Then I will let you calm down?" "Okay." Yi Ro agreed without any hesitation and didn't beat around the bush at all. It was as if he didn't hear Fang Yin's words at all and was just testing the waters. "Ha ha ha, Ro. I'm just joking with you." Before Fang Yin finished his sentence, Yi Ro didn't seem to move, but a majestic aura emitted from her body. It was like a sudden explosion of energy bomb, and Fang Yin, who was unprepared, was directly blown away. Clang! The door swayed, and because it couldn't bear the gravity, it looked like it was about to break away from the car. Fang Yin's body tumbled in the air, and then suddenly stopped in the air, violating the principle of free fall. It was as if someone hung a hydrogen balloon on top of his head, or he was stepping on a pair of flaming wheels. His long robe fluttered, and the hem of his robe fluttered in the cold wind. Fang Yin's hair hadn't been trimmed for a while, and now it looked a bit long. They flapped their cheeks haphazardly, covering the left half of the eye. At this moment, Fang Yin really had the cold and arrogant demeanor of a peerless expert. Of course, he was a master of a master. Yi Ro unfastened her seatbelt and jumped out of the open window. Her feet landed lightly on the thick roof of the car. Fang Yin saw Yi Ro chasing after them. Obviously, she didn't want to give up. She said hurriedly, "Ru, let's go back and fight. It's not good to fight and kill in public, right?" Yi Ro ignored Fang Yin and punched out. An invisible mass of air shrouded Fong Yin. Fong Yin kicked out in the air, and there was a violent collision of air currents in the air. The sizzling sound was incessant, as if something was being burned. However, there were no sparks in the air that could be seen with the naked eye. In the distance, there was the sound of gas bursting. A big pit was blown up in the wheat field, and a large area of green wheat sprouts was covered with black soil. It seemed that they would never show up again. The first punch was just a test. When Fong Yin kicked away the mass of air, Yi Ro stretched out her hand and pulled the Dragon Striker whip from her waist. The whip was like a long snake. It swung in the air one wave after another, and it curled toward Fong Yin's body. Fong Yin knew how terrifying Yi Ro's whip was. His body, which had stopped in the air, rose again. A cold wind blew, and his body moved with the wind. He pounced toward Yi Ro's inner core at a speed that was hard to be seen by the naked eye. Clatter! The sound of firecrackers rang out. It was caused by the long whip tearing the air. Yi Ro shook her right wrist, and the long whip in her hand spun back. The tip of the long whip seemed to have eyes. It hissed and bit toward Fong Yin's back. Fong Yin felt a chill run down his back. Even if his palm hit Yi Ro, he would be pierced by her whip. Moreover, he didn't dare to hit Yi Ro at all. Therefore, he turned 180 degrees in the air and gave up on attacking Yi Ro with the cloud-expelling palm. Instead, he reached out to grab the tail of the long whip. The tip of the long whip landed in Fong Yin's palm, but he felt a heat flow from his back. His qi and blood were tumbling in his body, and his organs were almost displaced. With a muffled groan, his body was like a rocket that had failed to launch, quickly smashing towards the ground. Plop! Fong Yin's body crashed heavily into the wheat field. With the spot where he fell as the center, the wheat sprouts and soil within a radius of tens of meters were sent flying by the irresolvable force. It was fine if he didn't move, but once he did, it shocked everyone. This was the power of the heavenly Tao realm. After Yi Ro sent Fong Yin flying with a slap, her body flew horizontally again. Her feet returned to her original position on the roof. It was as if she hadn't moved at all. Don't think that I'll show mercy just because you don't fight back, Yi Ro said coldly. Half of Fong Yin's body was in the soil. He tried his best to raise his head, wiped the soil off his face, and spat out the mud in his mouth. Looking at the lofty Yi Ro, he said with a smile, "How can a man hit his wife? Vent your anger. Even if you beat me to death, I won't do anything to you." "You beat me in the past, too," Yi Ro said. "Yeah, at that time, you weren't my wife yet," Fong Yin said with a self-righteous expression. "I didn't know whose wife you would become. You bullied me, so I naturally fought back. A man can be beaten to death by his wife, but how can he be beaten to death by someone else's wife?" Yi Ro sneered and said, "Then I'll let you experience the true power of the heavenly Tao realm." Yi Ro flicked the whip in her hand, and the soft whip that could be used as a belt turned into an indestructible spear. Due to the immense force injected into the spear trembled violently. It was like a snake that was unwilling to be at the mercy of others. The spearhead buzzed as it darted forward again and again, in a bid to escape the terrifying woman's control. The spear shaft was enveloped in a layer of white haze. The white haze turned green, red, and deep purple. The spear in Yi Ro's hand looked like it was about to burn. Yi Ro held the spear in one hand as she stretched out her other hand's slender middle finger to gently flick the end of the spear. Bang! A soft sound was heard. When the spear left her hand, a shocking scene appeared. It formed a purplish-red trajectory in the air. The trajectory was like a smear of mud in midair. Even after the spear left, it didn't dissipate. Sizzle. The spear became the source of incinerating everything. The surrounding air was swept over by it before being burnt. The wheat sprouts on the ground, the black soil that maintained the wheat sprouts, the rocks that were wrapped in the black soil, and the ugly and innocent earthworms were swept over like moths to a flame before vanishing instantly. Not even a puff of white smoke could be seen. Skyfire ablaze. This was the true power of the heavenly Tao realm. It was the ultimate power of the world, or it could be said that they shouldn't even exist in this world. They should be weapons in the hands of sky gods, the willow, the wisps of hell, a taboo for humans. However, a group of humans had broken the barrier and personally obtained this taboo power that came from a foreign land. The spear was silent. It didn't need to make any sound. However, no one could ignore its existence. This was because it was like a comet with a gigantic tail. It was coming at Fong Yin with an unstoppable might that could incinerate everything. It wouldn't rest until one of them was dead. Fong Yin sensed danger as his flesh tensed up. Every hair on his body seemed to stand on end. Although the spear had yet to reach him, Fong Yin already felt like he was being burned by an inferno. The heat wave hit him in the face, and the hair on his face and head gave off a burnt smell. This woman, Fong Yin cursed through gritted teeth. This woman must be crazy. How could she use such a killer move? Is she planning to murder her husband? Fong Yin was very worried that he wouldn't die at the hands of the divine dragon, but the hands of his future wife, Wen-ro. The Taiji heart that had been silent for a long time began to spin once again. The black and white Taiji fishes spun crazily before turning into a transparent crystal. On the surface, the crystal didn't seem to move at all, as though it had solidified. But in fact, its motion had been upgraded, turning into the motion of dark matter. Dark matter was a type of matter that was smaller than electrons and photons. It didn't carry any electric charge and wouldn't interfere with electrons. It could pass through electromagnetic waves and gravitational fields. It was an important part of the universe. The density of dark matter was very low, but the quantity was huge. Therefore, its total mass was very large. It represented 84.5% of the matter in the universe, of which the matter visible to humans only accounted for less than 10% of the total mass. In scientific terms, this was dark matter freely moving within. But in the eyes of martial arts practitioners, this was a sign that the body's potential had been developed to the limit. The cyclone had become a body of energy. It had become a tangible energy gate that could continuously extract energy. Fong Yan's knees were slightly bent, his hands were spread out, and his feet were drawing circles on the ground. He displayed the invincible drunken crane riding the wind to the extreme. His body had already turned into an illusory shadow. The shadow became fainter and fainter until it was almost transparent. The long purplish-red trail of the spear pierced through the shadow, leaving a colorful trail in the middle of the shadow. From afar, the trajectory of the spear through the air and through the transparent shadow looked like a beautiful picture of a spear piercing through a heart. Chapter 834. Although Ruan Jing and Yi were a step behind, they quickly caught up. Ruan Jing drove, while Ye's eyes kept searching. Ahead, their car is in the wheat field. Yi shouted as she pointed at the car in the wheat field. They're fighting. They're fighting. Yi shouted even louder as she pointed at Fong Yin and Yi-ro, who were flying in the air. Ruan Jing had already seen Fong Yin and Yi-ro. As he drove the car over, he answered Yi, "I saw it. They're really fighting. Let's stand further away." Ruan Jing stopped the car far away and looked at the purplish-red rainbow that appeared in the sky. He said with his mouth agape, "It's over. Your sister has used a killer move. Is this move very powerful?" He didn't know much about martial arts, but she could still sense the murderous aura from afar. She felt her body tense up and her heart beating violently. She would have such a feeling when watching horror movies, but it was obvious that this wasn't a horror movie. The scene of Fong Yin and Yi-ro fighting in the wheat field was still very beautiful. "Impressive." Ruan Jing nodded solemnly. "There's a rainbow. What's its name?" "I don't know." Ruan Jing knew that he had been despised by Yi. He explained with a flushed face, "Although I don't know its name, I know that this move must be very powerful. Think about it. How can a Heavenly Tao Realm expert's killer move not be powerful?" Yi nodded and asked worriedly, "Don't tell me my sister really killed Fong Yin? How is that possible?" Ruan Jing grinned and said, "Fong Yin is your sister's man. How could she kill him? She wouldn't be happy even if others wanted to kill her. You sure aren't worried at all, Yi said with a roll of her eyes. Then why did she use a killer move on Fang Yin? It's to feed him a move, Ruan Jing said. What do you mean feed him a move? It's sparring practice. It's to let Fang Yin familiarize himself with the might of the heavenly Dao realm and the various possible attacks, Ruan Jing said with a smile. He really wasn't worried at all. This group of brothers had watched Fang Yin and Yi Ro grow up, and it was also this group of brothers who had watched them get together. After loving and killing each other for so many years, their feelings were much more intense than ordinary people's. Yi Ro was cold on the outside, but warm on the inside. She was dedicated to Fang Yin. How could she kill Fang Yin at this moment? I see. Yezi nodded and said, Do you mean that my sister won't kill Fang Yin no matter what? Of course, Ruan Jing said. Unless there's only one possibility. What possibility? Yezi was a little nervous again. Ruan Jing looked at Yi doubtfully and said, If Fang Yin doesn't resist, or if he can't resist, then the killing move might really kill him. Ouch! Leaf exclaimed. Ruan Jing, hurry up and stop them. Don't let them fight anymore. Ruan Jing wore a bitter look and said, You want me to mediate a fight between two heavenly Dao realm experts? Indeed, a woman's heart is the most vicious. Who are you calling a woman? You are the woman. You don't even dare to mediate a fight. Just as Ruan Jing and Yezi had seen, the spear that was manifested from the whip flew across the sky, pulling out a purplish-red rainbow in the air. The rainbow was like colored powder smeared on glass. It looked like it wouldn't disappear anytime soon. There was a strong charred smell in the air. It was the smell of air, wheat sprouts, black soil, and rocks being incinerated. Although it was difficult to even see their corpses being incinerated. The flaming spear pierced through the translucent body, as though it had pierced through Fang Yan's heart. Then, the spear kept moving forward, and the huge thrust supported it to fly to a place far, far away. Fang Yan's body vanished from the spot, as though he had been incinerated by the flaming spear. However, there wasn't any horror in Yi Ro's eyes. Her body remained standing on the roof of the carriage. The cold winds howled, and her long hair fluttered. She looked like a witch that could destroy the world at any moment. Strange ripples appeared in the place where Fang Yin had just disappeared. Then, a huge cyclone appeared in the air. The cyclone became slower and slower, turning into a transparent figure. As the speed of the cyclone slowed down, the figure became clearer and clearer. Fang Yin appeared again. It was very magical, and it looked very strange. Fang Yin seemed to have gone to another time and space to hide for a while. After the danger passed, he came back. Fang Yin's body floated in the air. His feet didn't touch the dust on the ground. He was handsome, confident, and elegant. There was a faint smile on his face. It was as if he had just returned from a perfect vacation. Fang Yin looked at Yi Ro on the roof and said, This is the power of the great desolation and the most primitive power in the world. It's invincible and invincible. It can devour and incinerate everything it encounters. I thought it was just a legend. I didn't expect it to be real. The water overflow state is also very good. Yi Ro raised her chin slightly, looking very proud. At least you're good at running away. Fang Yin laughed out loud and said, I've been made fun of by my wife. Then I'll show you what the real water overflow state is. When Fang Yin spoke, he had become transparent in an instant. Yi Ro quickly turned around and slapped out. Their palms collided in midair, producing a dull sound. It turned out that when Fang Yin spoke, he had already changed his position. Before he finished his words, he had already launched an attack on Yi Ro from behind. Crack! Crack! The two of them were fighting more fiercely. It's so exciting, Yi Ro said excitedly. Ruan Jing nodded and said yes. Half an hour later. They're all so powerful. Ruan Jing nodded and said yes. 1 hour later. Have they finished fighting? Ruan Jing shook his head and said no. 2 hours later. Haven't they finished fighting yet? Ruan Jing shook his head and said no. Go back to sleep. I'll call you when they're done. 3 hours later. Yi Ro opened her sleepy eyes and asked, What's wrong? They're done. Ruan Jing said. Oh. Yi Ro leaned back on the chair and fell asleep again. We're going back, Ruan Jing said. Yiro looked outside and was shocked. She said, wow, they're so powerful. They destroyed a wheat field in the field. Ruan Jing opened his mouth and didn't know what to say. Yiro was still driving. Fong Yan's body slumped in the passenger seat. I can't bear to hit you, Fong Yan said in a weak voice. Yiro ignored him and drove with a serious face. I mean it. I can't bear to hit you, Fong Yan emphasized again. By the time the group returned to Swallow Dock, lunchtime had long passed, and it would be time for dinner in a while. When Fong Yan returned home, Yiro followed him to the Fong family's house. Ruan Jing and Yiro didn't hesitate and followed them. Luan looked at Yiro as if she was her future daughter-in-law. She took Yiro's hand and asked her why she came back so late and if she had had lunch. Yiro said no, so Luan went to the kitchen and asked the servants to cook. Fong Yin touched the bleeding wound on the corner of his mouth and wanted to cry. He was injured so badly. Didn't his mother see it? Was she really his real mother? The future mistress wanted to eat, so the chef's speed was first class. She made some home-cooked dishes and a pot of rice. The four of them were so hungry that they gobbled up the food. Ruan Jing had just finished his third bowl of rice when the pheasant and mushroom soup was served. Only after everyone drank another bowl of soup could they be considered truly satisfied. Ruan Jing took a tissue and wiped his mouth. He looked at Fong Yin and said, I have to go back to deal with something. He looked at Yiro and asked, Do you want to go with me? Yiro glanced at Yiro and said, Sister, I'll go back to talk with the old ancestor. After that, they bade farewell to Lu Wan and left. Fong Yin looked at Yiro, and Yiro also looked at Fong Yin. Lu Wan looked at Fong Yin and Yiro and seemed to suddenly think of something. She said, I also have an appointment with your aunt to discuss the wedding. You two have a rest. I'll go to talk with my aunt. After that, she left with a little girl. Now, there were only Fong Yin and Yiro in the living room. Fong Yin looked at Yiro and said, Don't you have a rest? Yiro stood up and said, Come here. Okay. Fong Yin nodded and stood up. Yiro pushed open the door of Fong Yan's room. After Fong Yin passed by her, she closed the door and locked it. Yiro stood at the door and said to Fong Yin, Go take a bath. Okay. Fong Yin nodded again. He didn't dare to resist because he was afraid that Yiro would beat him again. When he walked to the door of the bathroom, he suddenly came to his senses. He stared at Yiro and said hesitantly, Ro, it's not good. It's still early and my mom may come back at any time. How about we wait a little longer? Yiro looked at him expressionlessly and said, I said take a bath. Okay. If you're in a hurry, we can close the curtains. Fong Yin trotted into the bathroom. Idiot. A charming smile appeared on Yiro's face. Chapter 835. Indulge in the night. Tell me it's hard to find you. Turning back is a dream. Still passive escape. Stare at you, but deeply annoyed Fong Yin coughed violently, and water poured into his mouth. Fong Yin took a quick shower with a little joy in his heart. He used a towel to wipe his hair and the water stains on his body. Then, he walked out of the bathroom in clean pajamas. Yiro sat on the bed, looking at him with a strange look, with a rare shyness on her face. Get on the bed, Yiro said. Okay. Fong Yin answered, moving to the bed with small steps, climbed on the bed with his butt up, and then closed his eyes, lying on the bed with his body spread out. Lying on the bed, some lewd pictures came to his mind, and a dot appeared under the word big, which became 2. Fong Yin felt a little embarrassed, thinking, how can I do this? But then he thought, this is what a real man should do. If not, Yiro must think there's something wrong with me. Turn over and lie on your stomach, Yiro said. Okay. Fong Yin was about to change his position. When he was about to turn over, he suddenly felt this behavior was a little inappropriate. He could love endlessly, but he couldn't accept such humiliation. Fong Yin lay back down. He looked at Yiro timidly and said, Why don't we just lie down? You can lie on top. You must lie on your stomach. Yiro's attitude was very tough. I'm not used to that. You'll get used to it. Fong Yin was angry and shouted, Yiro, I'm telling you, although I don't want to hit you, it doesn't mean I can't beat you. I'm a man, and I've given up my pride and self-esteem to let you lie on top, but you're still not satisfied. You want me to lie on my stomach. Why do you want me to lie on my stomach? What can you do? Apply medicine. Yiro looked at Fong Yin as if looking at a lunatic and said these two words softly. Fong Yin's body instantly stiffened, and he immediately closed his eyes. However, when she thought of how Yi Wenru was still staring at her from the side of the bed, she closed her eyes. Wasn't it the legendary act of burying one's head in the sand? Thus, Fong Yin opened his eyes again. Fong Yin bravely looked into Yi Wen's eyes and said, I know you're applying medicine, but can't I apply it while I'm lying down? The palm I used to hit you was on your back, Yi Ro said expressionlessly. Fong Yin felt that he was really stupid. How could he think of anything else? Yi Ro was his fiancée, a woman who would soon become his wife. No matter how impatient she was, it was impossible for her to get on him at this moment. Of course, it was impossible for him to do such a thing. So, Fong Yin turned over and exposed his back to Yi Ro. Yi Ro smeared the brown ointment on her palm, and then gently rubbed it on the spot where the blood clotted on Fong Yin's back. After applying the ointment evenly, she began to massage the clotted blood with her palm. There was a cyan light flashing in the middle of her palm, and a scorching warm current flowed on Fong Yin's back. Fong Yin felt a burning pain on his skin. He knew that Yi Ro was using her internal force to help him improve blood circulation and remove blood clots to repair the damage to his internal tissues. This woman didn't hold back when she hit him, and she didn't hold back when she treated him. If you use a little more force, I won't have to fight against the dragon god this time, Fong Yin said with a smile. If I use a little more force, you won't have the chance to fight against the dragon god anymore, Yi Ro said. Fong Yin covered his head in the pillow, smiled shyly, and said, I know you don't want to do it. Crack. Yi Ro suddenly slapped him, and a dislocated bone on Fong Yin's back was reset. Ouch! Fong Yin cried out in pain. Anything can happen, Yi Zichen said. Yi Ro's palm continued to massage the injured spot on Fong Yin's back, and there was a gentle smile on her lips that Fong Yin couldn't see. This time, I believe you. Fong Yin lay there and didn't dare to move. I didn't do my best, Yi Ro said softly. I know, Fong Yin said with certainty. Although you've tried very hard, you don't have killing intent or fighting spirit in your heart. So it's hard for you to use your full strength. I have killing intent, but I also have fighting spirit. So, he's a very scary opponent, Fong Yin said in a low voice. Fong Yin, Yi Ro said softly. If you really want to, what am I thinking? I'm not thinking anything, Fong Yin quickly denied. This was too scary. Could it be that this woman had guessed his thoughts? Crack. Another spine on Fong Yin's back was restored by Yi Ro. Feng Mountain, also known as Wind Mountain, was located in the Red Canyon far away from Yanjing. Apart from the maple trees all over the mountain, there was also the sandstorm from the north. Feng Mountain was the first stronghold to stop the sandstorm from invading Yanjing City. No one lived here, and there were only a few tourists. Occasionally, a few backpackers came to enjoy the scenery of the Red Canyon. When they set up camp and prepared to cook, they found that a thick layer of sand quickly fell into the pot as soon as they put it on the fire. Unable to hold on, they packed their bags and fled in panic. Feng Mountain was more lively today because someone was going to fight here. Ever since Fong Yin went to challenge the dragon god, the news that both sides had agreed to fight in 7 days at Feng Mountain had spread. Many people had come here in advance to survey the terrain and find out the truth. Some people started setting up early. They drove their cars, prepared their tents, and settled down in a place with a beautiful view. Some people tried their best to climb, guessing which slope or which peak Fong Yin and the dragon god would fight on. After all, Feng Mountain was so big and stretched for hundreds of kilometers. If they were too far away, they would miss the exciting duel. Most people gathered at the foot of the mountain and waited until they confirmed the location of the duel between Fong Yin and the dragon god before approaching. Most of the people who knew about the duel were influential figures in Yanjing City. Their circle was small, but there were many people. Everyone knew each other, so it was common to see such a scene. Hey, Third brother, you're here too? What's up? Who do you bet on? I bet on the dragon god. Young Master Jean, come here. Try this red wine I brought. I know you like it. I'm sure you'll be satisfied. 3 twos. I bet 3 twos. Why are you betting on a pair of kings? Are you stupid? Have you figured out who's the landlord here? Phalai Peak. This was the loneliest and steepest peak in Foam Mountain. It was high and dangerous, and there was almost no road. It was said that several groups of mountaineering enthusiasts wanted to conquer Phalai Peak, but they were all conquered by it. After a life was lost, those people finally gave up on this place with all kinds of legends. Of course, such road conditions couldn't stop Fong Yin and the dragon god's hard life. The person accompanying Fong Yin was Yi Ro. Originally, he wanted to come alone, but after Yi Ro glanced at him, he immediately understood what she meant. Maybe it was because the wedding day was approaching, but they were getting along better and better. Fong Yin felt that he understood Yi Ro better and better. In the past, he only knew that Yi Ro would beat him up when she was unhappy. Now he knew that Yi Ro might beat him up whether she was happy or not. So, Fong Yin took the initiative to invite Yi Ro. Yi Ro nodded and agreed readily. The dragon god's hard life was accompanied by his disciple, Gong Sun Chi. On one side was his master, and on the other side was his savior. Gong Sun Chi was most unwilling to see this duel. Even though they had already arrived at the venue, the way he looked at Fong Yin still made Fong Yin feel as strong, pleading. His eyes could speak, and he was telling Fong Yin, stop fighting, go back. Go back to your own home, find some vegetables, and fight as you want, abuse as you want. Fong Yin felt that Gong Sun Chi was really his good brother. Fong Yin was dressed in white, which was his special request, because he liked Shimin Chue Shue and Gu Long's wuxia novels. No matter which door he was in, since it was snowing, it was more appropriate to wear white. In Fong Yin's mind, Shimin Chue Shue must wear white. If he wore black, yellow, red, or purple, it would not be worthy of such a cool name. The dragon god's hard life was still dressed in a gray robe. When Fong Yin first saw him, he was wearing the same clothes, and now he was still wearing the same clothes, as if he had never bought a new set of clothes. His body was skinny, and his hands were folded in his sleeves. Standing on the top of the mountain, he looked like he would be blown away by a gust of wind. Gong Sun Chi walked in front of Fong Yin, looked at Fong Yin, and said, "You've decided you won't change your mind?" Fong Yin patted his shoulder and said with a smile, "I can understand how you feel, but you should also know that when we last met, I had already made up my mind." The dragon god saw this scene and sighed, "My disciple, dragon god's hard life, is still not as good as green dragon Mo Chindi's disciple. This duel is inevitable. Why say so much?" Fong Yin glanced at the dragon god's hard life and said, "Gong Sun Chi is just more sentimental than I am. He is willing to care about the fate of others, but I care more about my own fate. You sure know how to defend him," the dragon god said with a smile. His gaze fell on Yi Ro, who was beside Fong Yin, and said, "I heard that Fong Yin is going to marry Miss Yi. One family with 2 heavenly laws. This is something that has never been heard of for hundreds of years. It will definitely be a great story in the future." Yi Ro looked at the dragon god's hard eyes and said in a cold voice, "If you kill him, I will definitely kill you." Chapter 836. If you kill him, I will definitely kill you. Yi Ro's words were sonorous and powerful. It did not make sense to make such a threat before the duel. However, according to Yi Ro's usual character and style of doing things, it was not strange at all. Besides, the last time the Divine Dragon battled with the Azure Dragon Mo Qingdi, it was a friendly duel, but the Divine Dragon broke the tendons of the Azure Dragon Mo Qingdi's hand, making him wish he was dead. Who asked this old fellow to have such a record? The mountain winds howled and sand filled the sky. Hearing Yi Ro's words, the Divine Dragon's expression did not change, nor did he show any anger. He looked at Fong Yin with a smile and said, "You have a good wife. It is a great blessing in life." Fong Yin nodded and said, "You don't have to be envious. It's useless to be envious anyway. At your age, it's probably not easy for you to find a wife, right?" Ha ha! The divine dragon laughed out loud and said, "That makes sense, it really makes sense. At my age, it's probably not easy for me to find a wife, let alone a good wife in the heavenly Tao realm." The husband and wife ganged up to bully his master, an old man who had never even married a wife in his life. This was unacceptable to Gong Sun Chi. He could not be angry at his savior, Fong Yin, so he targeted Fong Yan's wife, Yiro. See, straight men are so cute. What a joke. If Fong Yin is killed by my master, will you be able to avenge Fong Yin? Why do you think you are better than Fong Yin? Gong Sun Chi sneered. When he spoke, the direction of his nostrils indicated the target of his attack. Yiro glanced at Gong Sun Chi and said, "What right do you have to speak? What do you mean? If you were slightly more powerful, would you still need your master to fight Fong Yin personally? Yiro, do you dare to accept my challenge?" Gong Sun Chi gnashed his teeth, wishing he could cut Yiro into two pieces right there and then. He really felt pity for Fong Yin. Such a good man, handsome, charming, humorous, skilled in martial arts, and loyal. How could he fall into the hands of such a woman? How could he be happy in this life? "I dare not." Yiro refused on the spot. "I don't compete with people of lower realms." Gong Sun Chi drew his sword on the spot, ready to fight to the death with Yiro. Gong Sun Chi, the dragon god, tried his best to stop him. "Stop messing around. Master, she's going too far." Gong Sun Chi roared with a red face and neck. "What's wrong with being ridiculed? Because your cultivation isn't good enough. Only by knowing shame and courage can one become a master of a generation." The dragon god worked hard and did not hesitate to stab his disciple in the chest. Gong Sun Chi really wanted to go down the mountain. There was no way to continue watching this fight. The dragon god looked at Gong Sun Chi and said, "When you reach the top, all the mountains are small. The most important thing is the process of climbing. When you reach the top, there is no one around you, no one to talk to. How lonely and helpless will that be? When you can't see the stars and the moon in front of you, how will you have the direction to chase? How will you have the motivation to chase? It's a happy thing to have an opponent to defeat and surpass. How boring is it to have never been defeated in life?" Gong Sun Chi's face turned serious. He bowed respectfully to his master and said, "Master, your disciple understands. Your disciple will definitely focus on cultivation and climb to the heavenly realm in the future." The dragon god nodded to his disciple and said, "You have the talent. It's only a matter of time for you to climb to the heavenly realm, but you lack training and the hardships of putting yourself at death's door. This will hinder your climbing to the heavenly realm." The dragon god pointed at Fong Yin and said, "As the saying goes, the children of the poor become responsible early." Although Fong Yin has experienced many setbacks and challenges, it has honed his temperament and aura. That's why he entered the realm at such a young age. You are my disciple. This helped you in the early stages, allowing you to improve quickly and have a solid foundation. But it also hurt you in the later stages. You can only progress slowly, and you lack the surprise of reaching the heavens in one step. Fong Yin was a little unhappy. He thought, "This old man doesn't even know how to praise someone. Who are you calling a child of the poor? My family was rich back then, okay? Now my family is even richer, okay?" Gong Sun Chi was deeply inspired. He looked at the dragon god and the dragon god with sincerity and said, "A teacher for a day, a teacher for life. To be able to become master's disciple is the greatest fortune of my life. No matter what, I will continue to work hard. Even if it's a little slow, it doesn't matter. I think one day I will climb to the heavenly realm. Your disciple will definitely not embarrass master." The dragon god grinned and said, "With these words of yours, our relationship as master and disciple has not been in vain." The dragon god seemed to be bidding farewell to his disciple. After he was done, he looked at Fong Yin and said, "I haven't moved in a long time, and I don't usually have the thought of exercising with great fanfare. So, in this battle, I hope you can let me have a taste of failure. Fists and legs have no eyes. Killing or mutilating depends on your means." The dragon god's voice was very calm, and when he spoke, there was a faint smile on his face. However, it gave off a tough feeling that was hard to ignore. The dragon god, usually looked low-key and amiable, like an approachable little old man. Only at this moment did he reveal the aura of a heavenly Tao realm in his fangs. Killing or mutilating depends on your means. This sentence was very straightforward, and it was also very magnanimous. It was 1,000 times more magnanimous than Yi Rose. If you kill him, I will definitely kill you. The dragon god was a domineering person who saw through life and death and was willing to give up everything, while Yi Rose was a domineering person who cherished him excessively and wanted to make him stay. Both were very precious. Fang Yin nodded and said, "To be honest, I don't blame you for breaking the old drunkard's tendons, because if I had one today, I would have done the same to you." The dragon god laughed again, looked at Fang Yin, and said, "You're really an interesting guy. I'm full of expectations for you. The wind is cold in the high mountains. Are we going to start? If this goes on, this old man's body won't be able to take it anymore." Fang Yin turned to look at Iro, looked straight into her beautiful eyes, and said, "I'll be right back." "Okay." Iro nodded. "If I don't come back, I will avenge you, and then raise your parents. There's something else I need your help with, but I don't know how to ask. Speak. Our Fang family has only one child for generations. If I don't come back today, when you have children in the future, can you choose one of them to be surnamed Fang?" The muscles on Yiro's face twitched, and she asked coldly, "Do you think the child's father will agree?" Fang Yan's expression changed drastically, and he said, "Are you really going to have children with him? Why not?" Yiro looked straight into Fang Yan's anxious eyes and said, "If that man is Fang Yan." Fang Yan stretched out his arm, and Yiro lay in his arms like a little bird. There was no shyness, nor was there any violence. It was so natural, filled with reluctance. Gong Sun-chi glanced at his master, and then quickly looked away. He thought, "Master doesn't need to do this, right?" Yi Ro and Gong Sun-chi began to retreat, and they only stopped when they reached the edge of Flying Peak. Even this place wasn't considered safe for two heavenly Tao realm experts to fight. However, they were powerful themselves. As long as they didn't directly participate in the battle, just some forces and rocks wouldn't be able to harm them. Fang Yin and the divine dragon stood facing each other. One side's clothes were whiter than snow, and they were moist like water. However, the water wasn't a stream, but a vast ocean that surged without end. The other side wore a heavy gray robe, and he had a steady and unshakable aura. Both of them had their auras converged, and not a single bit of their forces leaked out. Even so, they still gave off an unreachable sense of distance. Fang Yin was smiling, and so was Tiaphone. Both of them were smiling naturally and casually, without any signs of danger. Fang Yin placed one hand behind him, and the other made an inviting gesture and said, "Mr. Divine Dragon, please go ahead. Young man, don't stand on ceremony." The Divine Dragon said with a smile. As he spoke, he tapped the ground with his toes, and a rock shattered into countless pieces. The countless rocks turned into countless weapons, and, as if they had eyes, they stabbed at Fang Yin in front of him. This shameless old man. Fang Yin cursed in his heart. Although he said that the young man shouldn't stand on ceremony, his hands were already attacking the young man without restraint. Fang Yin waved his hands and waved them in the air. Then, a huge balloon was pushed forward. Crack, crack. The gravel hit the huge, invisible balloon and bounced back, shooting at the Divine Dragon. At the same time, the balloon drifted towards the Divine Dragon desperately, as if it was going to envelop the entire Divine Dragon inside. With a smile on his face, the Divine Dragon stretched out a finger and poked at the balloon. "Master!" Gong Sun-chi's heart almost jumped out of his throat. He was not sure about the strength of the water overflow state, but he knew that there was something else to this balloon. As long as his master's body touched this balloon, it would explode and tear him into pieces. Poof! The Divine Dragon tried his best to tap the balloon with his finger. Just like a soap bubble blown by a child, it disappeared in the air without a trace. There was no explosion, and no one was torn apart. This made Gongsun Chi confused, but he could not ask anyone else. After all, she was the only one present who could answer his questions. He did not want to ask her. This exchange was completed in the time it took for a spark to fly off a piece of flint. Both of them only lifted their toes and waved their arms. During the battle, both of them stood in the same place and did not move at all. Everything returned to normal. The divine dragon looked at Fang Yin and said with a smile, "This is considered a warm-up, right?" Fang Yin nodded and said, "Warm-up complete." Chapter 837. The foot of Feng Mountain was bustling with noise. Master Zhang, did they start fighting? Did they start fighting or not? Who knows? There wasn't even a bird, let alone a human. I say, someone like the dragon god wouldn't go up the mountain through this path, right? They stood on the peak after a few leaps and bounds. Do you think this is a fantasy film? No matter how powerful they are, they're still human, and they have to walk properly. I heard they went to the Go-Saro Peak, and some people are climbing there. Should we go and take a look? The dragon god is too much. Why didn't he do a live broadcast of such a big battle? If we stay here, they won't even know when the battle is over. Why don't we set up a big screen here in the Grand Canyon for a live broadcast? We could buy tickets to enter, drink beer, eat barbecue, and have a few pretty girls. He's not economical at all. Do you think this is a challenge tournament? What kind of master is Mr. Dragon God? I heard he's like a god who can kill a big tiger with one punch. Beijing. A villa in the suburbs. Qin Etienne held a cup of tea and stood on the edge of the corridor, looking at the undulating peaks in the distance. Those peaks belonged to the sphere of influence of Fragrant Mountain and were far away from Foam Mountain. However, she was watching with deep focus, as if the battle of the century that she had been longing for was taking place there. She wasn't like the other rich young masters who drove luxury cars with famous wine and beautiful supermodels to protect them. She knew the meaning of this battle, and she also knew what defeat meant. However, this battle was beyond her ability. Moreover, with that woman by Fang Yan's side, even with Qin Etienne's arrogance, he had to admit that she was more suitable than him. My battlefield is not there. Qin Etienne retracted her gaze and said to herself, "This is an unfair world. Some people are born high above and have everything. Some people struggle their whole lives, but end up poor and destitute. Some people enjoy the blessings of multiple lovers, and some people give their hearts, but don't get any warm response. I know you're not satisfied. You think you work harder than them. You think you're smarter than them, and you put in more effort than them." But he didn't receive any special treatment from others. It was as if everyone in the world had their eyes on that person. It's like a clown in a circus. You try your best to perform the funniest performance and the most difficult action, but all the audience is attracted to a guy who is acting as a puppet. They gave him flowers, applause, and riches. You, on the other hand, are unknown, doing what you have done countless times. Yes, it's unfair. I feel that the world is too cruel to you. But unfair things happen every day, and poor people appear every day. Why should I give you such a chance? In the Phoenix Orchid Grove in the courtyard stood a man completely shrouded in a black robe. He stood there motionlessly, as if he had become one with the phoenix tree. However, his eyes were bright. This was the only proof that he was still alive. "Because I think you're more valuable than them," Qin Etienne said coldly. "High and mighty, without any feelings. So, prove to me the value of your existence." The man bowed slightly and disappeared from the courtyard. Muing walked over and stood behind Qin Etienne. He followed her line of sight and looked at the mountain peak in the distance. He asked, "Is he trustworthy?" "Of course not," Qin Etienne answered without hesitation. "Would you trust a blade?" "Young lady, what do you mean? I'm only giving him a chance to prove himself. I don't trust him at all. Trust is a very precious word. I have to give it to the people I care about the most." "I understand," Muing nodded. "Has the battle begun?" Qin Etienne asked. "Our people have arrived at Feng Mountain, but they haven't found the exact location of the battle between Fang Yin and the Dragon God. This is also their intention. They don't want anyone to disturb them, except for the two sides. But as soon as they have a result, they will send it back immediately. Qin Yiqian didn't deny it. She handed the teacup to Mu Ying and said, "I'm going to take a bath." Mu Ying took the teacup and continued to guard the place. He knew that countless people were waiting for the final result. Huacheng. Lu Zhaoge finished his work and walked to the courtyard for a few steps to get some fresh air. That's good. At least I could take a breather now. The Lan clan of Lan Mountain Valley, the Lu clan of Willow Tree, and their Chaoyan technology were all in great danger when the Jiang clan suddenly launched an attack on them. Any carelessness, and they could be destroyed or devoured by them. Coupled with Li Ye's kidnapping and Du Qing's imprisonment, the ironclad alliance they had painstakingly built in Huacheng was almost dismembered. Without Huacheng to support Fang Yin, how could they fight against the Jiang clan in the future? Fortunately, at the most critical moment, the Qin clan jumped out and helped them offset the majority of the Jiang clan's attack and attracted the Jiang clan's main firepower. But the situation still wasn't optimistic. The Jiang clan was still the Jiang clan, and the Qin clan didn't intend to start a full-scale war with them. It was already difficult for them to protect themselves. To defeat the Jiang clan, they didn't even know how to start. But if Fang Yin won, it would be tough for him. Lu Zhaoge didn't know martial arts, but she was a smart woman. She knew how to judge the situation. She was very clear that the success or failure of this battle would determine the success or failure of Chaoyan technology and the existence of the ironclad alliance of Huacheng. If Fang Yin was defeated or killed in battle, would the Qin clan still be willing to support them like this? Would Lan Mountain Valley and Lu Shu, who were fighting together with them, still advance and retreat with them? If Fang Yin was no longer around, how much loyalty would they have left to this side? The worst-case scenario was that when they realized that the situation wasn't right and smelled blood, they might turn red and counterattack, becoming their biggest enemy. As an outstanding manager, as Fang Yan's representative in Huacheng, he had to have this sense of crisis. He could only keep this thought in his heart, in the deepest part of his heart. He couldn't even let his current battle partners know about it. He had to be fully prepared. Lu Zhaoge was very tired, but at this moment, she suddenly relaxed. She felt that it was a little strange. Fang Yin was fighting a decisive battle in Feng Mountain, and his life was hanging by a thread. Shouldn't she be more worried? Shouldn't she be under more pressure? Soon, she figured out the reason. She gave up, or rather, temporarily gave up, because the decisive factors were all gathered on Fang Yin. Fang Yin bore all the pressure for them. If Fang Yin won, then they would naturally sound the horn to counterattack and fight to the death with the Jiang clan. But if Fang Yin lost, or Fang Yin died, their efforts in Huacheng wouldn't have much meaning. With just them, they couldn't stop the attack of the Jiang clan or other forces. This had nothing to do with how hard they worked. Only now did Lu Zhaoge truly realize the importance of Fang Yan's existence to them. That young man, that delicate man with thin shoulders, the man who idled around all day and was complaining that he didn't do proper work, was actually supporting and protecting them in his own way. Fang Yin. Lu Zhaoge looked at the gray sky. Today's weather wasn't very good. There was no moon or stars in the sky. However, the night breeze was cool, so it didn't make people feel depressed. Lu Zhaoge held her stomach and said softly, "You must live." Swallow Doc. The teacher was used to sleeping early. If there was nothing else, he would eat dinner at around 8 o'clock every night, boil a bucket of hot water, soak his feet, and then lie in bed to sleep. Of course, he was also the earliest to get up in the village. When the people of Swallow Dock were still in their sweet dreams, he had already gotten up with a manure basket on his back to pick up feces. There were many domestic animals in Swallow Dock. The animals wandered around and defecated everywhere. However, the people who came to Swallow Dock would feel that it was especially clean. It was rare to see any animal feces because they were all picked up by the elders of Swallow Dock, led by the teacher. The night was gloomy and the weather was cold. The teacher who lived at the entrance of the village was the first to bear the brunt of the cold. The north wind blew, almost sweeping up the straw mat in his thatched cottage. The teacher stood in the middle of the courtyard, wearing a fox skin. He looked up at the sky and muttered to himself, "It's probably going to snow heavily before the Laba festival." He held an enamel jar in his hand, which contained a large amount of tea leaves. After taking a big gulp of the tea leaves, the teacher looked at the green mountains in the distance and sighed. This child is still too impatient, but isn't the water overflow realm in line with the heavens? If I had severed my mortal thoughts back then, where would I be now? Since Fong Yin has the confidence to challenge the dragon god, it means that he is fully prepared. He will soar to the heavens tonight. Fong Clan. Fong Clan's ancestral hall. Fong Huwei, the old master of the Fong Clan, didn't have dinner that night. In the evening, he asked his eldest son-in-law to push him in, then chased his son-in-law away and closed the door of the ancestral hall. Before this, he had already abstained from meat and wine. He knelt in front of the plaque of the Fong Clan's ancestors and prayed devoutly. He didn't believe in ghosts and gods, but he still hoped that they could protect his grandson. Fong Yin will win. Chapter 838. This was a world where looks mattered. Jia Zhaoqiang was short and fat, and he stuttered a little. According to the natural elimination law of society, it was not easy for a man like him to find a partner. However, if he was the second young master of the Jia family in Yanjing, it would be a different story. Jia Zhaoqiang knew where his disadvantage was. Compared with other handsome playboys, he felt that he was too simple and honest. Therefore, in order to make up for his shortcomings, Jia Zhaoqiang especially liked to spend money. Anyway, he had secretly calculated that according to his current daily consumption level, the existing assets of the Jia family were enough for him to squander for 365 years. Even if he gave 265 years to his elder brother, he still had 100 years to enjoy. Jia Zhaoqiang was very worried that he would not live to 100 years old. Therefore, Jia Zhaoqiang put in a lot of effort when he spent money. For example, this time, in order to enjoy the much-anticipated battle of Feng Mountain, Jia Zhaoqiang brought a team of Hummers. There were 2 bodyguards from the famous security company Golden Shield Security. In fact, he did not need bodyguards at all. However, rich playboys and young ladies all brought bodyguards. If he did not bring 2 bodyguards, wouldn't he be looked down upon? There was a chef and a personal assistant, red wine produced by a centuries-old Bordeaux wine cellar, a charcoal oven, and a rising billet star, Li Qing, whom he had arranged a time earlier. Naturally, Jia Zhaoqiang gathered with other playboys. They drank and bragged, and then took beautiful girls to the tent for wild sex. After Jia Zhaoqiang drank 2 bottles of wine and ate a few pieces of fat, but not greasy lamb legs, he became interested in that aspect. He dragged a star named Li Qing into the tent. Li Qing followed Jia Zhaoqiang with infinite shyness in the midst of the playful teasing of those playboys. Whoosh! A white shadow flashed in front of Jia Zhaoqiang's eyes, rolling up a cold wind and attacking Jia Zhaoqiang's body. Jia Zhaoqiang stood there for a long time and asked, "Did you see anything?" Li Qing was busy acting shy. How could she notice anything else? So, she shook her head and said, "What? I didn't see anything." Jia Zhaoqiang rubbed his eyes and said, "It seems that there is nothing. Let's go in. You only know how to scare people." Li Qing pinched Jia Zhaoqiang's fat arm. It was more like she was scratching and flirting with him. "I really saw a shadow," Jia Zhaoqiang said seriously. Seeing Li Qing's tender and alluring little face, Jia Zhaoqiang felt that there was really no need for him to waste time on some insignificant matters. So, Jia Zhaoqiang held Li Qing's little hand and said, "Maybe I'm seeing things. Come quickly. I'm in a good mood. I'll let you enjoy yourself today." A black object flew towards Jia Zhaoqiang's face. Jia Zhaoqiang couldn't dodge in time, and his fat face was hit by the object. "Who is it?" Jia Zhaoqiang shouted. "Who the F***CK hit me?" He reached out his hand to touch his face, and there was a layer of greasy stuff on his palm. He placed it in front of his nose and sniffed it. It smelled like roasted mutton. Jia Zhaoqiang looked at his feet. It was the leg of lamb that he had thrown away earlier. He kicked the leg of lamb away and shouted at the top of his voice, "Who the F***CK threw something at me? What's going on? Are you not satisfied with me? If you're not satisfied, come out and fight me one-on-one." Don't you think hiding in the dark and doing this kind of thing is too shameful? Although Jia Zhaoqiang was fat, he wasn't stupid at all. He had already calculated in his heart. In this area, there were only 3 families that the Jia family couldn't afford to offend, and one of them was a woman. The other 2 families were stationed slightly further away from him. Even if they wanted to hit him with a roasted mutton leg, they probably didn't have the strength to do so. Therefore, the people who could throw a mutton leg at his face were naturally the people that the Jia family wasn't afraid of. Jair, who hit you? What are you shouting about? Even a small celebrity can't shut your mouth. Old Jia, if you don't go, I won't be polite anymore. Li Qing happens to be my type. Why don't I swap places with you? Li Qing pulled Jia Zhaoqiang's arm and whispered, Brother Chong, let's go in. I'm scared. Jia Zhaoqiang rubbed his face that was hurting from being hit by the mutton leg and said, Son of a b****, don't let me know who did this shameless thing. If I find out, I'll definitely cut off the pig head meat on your face piece by piece. After saying that, Jia Zhaoqiang was about to enter the tent with his butt in the air when his butt suddenly tightened. Slap! Something hard smashed into his buttocks. Jia Zhaoqiang suddenly turned around and shouted, Who? Who did this? Come out right now. If you have the guts, fight me one-on-one. I'll skin you alive today. Their employer was attacked, and the 2 retired bodyguards naturally ran over to protect him. Young Master Chong, it's a mutton leg. One of the bodyguards used a knife to pick up the suspected murder weapon from the ground and reported to Jia Zhaoqiang. Damn it. Jia Zhaoqiang looked at it and realized it was the mutton leg that he had just thrown out. Now, Jia Zhaoqiang couldn't curse anymore. He had a creepy feeling in his heart. They were stationed at the edge of the canyon. There was a river at the edge of the canyon called Red River. When Jia Zhaoqiang threw the mutton leg, it was thrown in the direction of the Red River. In other words, this roasted mutton leg should be lying quietly at the bottom of the Red River. Why did it appear again? And it hit my butt? The more Jia Zhaoqiang thought about it, the more scared he felt. Young Master Chong, should we search the area? The other bodyguard asked. Brother Chong, let's go in. What's wrong? Why are you looking at me like that? Li Qing saw Jia Zhaoqiang's pale face and eyes filled with fear. Jia Zhaoqiang grabbed Li Qing's hand and said, Go back. Let's go back now. Brother Chong, are we not going to watch the final battle? Not anymore. Let's go. Drive. Go a drive. Ada and Aquan are in our car. Be careful. Yes. The 2 bodyguards didn't know what was going on, but they agreed readily. To be able to squeeze in the same car with the beauty Li Qing was something they couldn't ask for. Although Li Qing couldn't jump to the top, in the eyes of these bodyguards, she was already an unapproachable big shot. After warming up, it was time to get down to business. Shenren's body disappeared on the spot, then suddenly appeared in front of Fang Yen. Shenron struck with his palm. It was an ordinary palm. Fang Yen reached out to receive it, but it was too late. That palm pressed against his chest. The heart of Tai Chi spun naturally, and the chi in his body leaked out wildly. Then, it gathered at the chest that was about to be hit by Shenren's attack. Pa! That palm hit a transparent ball of light. It was like a firefly that was freed from a bottle cap. Starlight scattered in all directions, and Fang Yan's body was also sent flying out. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Fang Yan, who was in the air, was still dizzy. He hadn't been able to react or adapt to the rhythm of the attack. Fang Yan's eyes were still watching the moment Shenron disappeared, but Shenron had already arrived in front of him. When Fang Yan saw Shenron coming to him, he had already struck with his palm. When Fang Yan saw the ordinary palm that the divine dragon had painstakingly unleashed, he raised his hand to block it. However, the palm was already about to land on his chest. If it wasn't for the heart of Tai Chi, which spun naturally when it was in danger, forming a protective ball of air in front of his chest, that stream of air would have blocked Shenron's palms. Although in the end, they were smashed into pieces by Shenron's seemingly ordinary palm, but they still managed to protect Fang Yan's vital points and saved Fang Yan's life. Otherwise, who would be willing to suffer Shenron's palm for nothing? Fang Yan's body kept flying. He flew over Yi Ro's head, over the forest, over the boulders, and was about to fly out of the range of the mountain to the cliff where he missed his footing, Fong Yin knew the height of Failai Peak. If he were to fall, he would definitely die. He forcefully gathered his chi and leaped into the air, taking large strides towards the peak of Failai Peak. It looked like a celestial being sprinting in midair. Pa! Fong Yan's feet landed on the ground, and he felt a sweet taste in his throat as he spat out a mouthful of blood. Fong Yan, are you all right? Yi Ro asked anxiously. Yi Ro was also a heavenly Dao realm expert. She had also watched the duel from a close distance, so she could understand how miraculous Shenren's palm strike was. No, he didn't look miraculous at all. His disappearance was very ordinary, and so was his palm strike. There was no flying sand and rocks, nor was there any thunder or lightning. He had just struck out his palm in such an ordinary manner. However, there was no way to dodge or block it. Even if she were to deal with that palm strike, she would probably end up being sent flying, right? Is this the true strength of Shenren's Shenron? Yi Ro thought worriedly. If that was the case, did Fong Yin really have a chance of winning? Fong Yin. Gong Sun Chi had just shouted Fong Yan's name when he hurriedly shut his mouth. Fong Yin was his master's opponent. How could he be overly worried about him in a battle between the two of them? Your eyes are deceiving you, Shenron said in a deep voice as he looked at Fong Yin with great difficulty. Chapter 839. Your eyes are deceiving you. The dragon god looked at the injured Fong Yin and said, You didn't see me. I didn't see you. Fong Yin's expression was solemn as he said in a low voice, You saw me disappear on the spot. I wasn't me at that time. You saw me appear in front of you. I wasn't me at that time either. You saw me attack. I wasn't me at that time either. The human, I will create some illusions for the brain. Some illusions are formed naturally. Some are created artificially. Everything you saw was created artificially. I understand. Fong Yin nodded. Now I've thought it through. The ripples you created when you disappeared were illusions. Then, you used one illusion after another to create a complete attack. But at that time, you were already in front of me. That palm strike, I endured that palm strike much earlier than what I saw. Mountain spirit manifestation. The dragon god said with a smile. It's just a small trick, but if it's used cleverly, it can achieve unexpected results. You just entered the water overflow state. It's rare for you to understand the key to it so quickly. It's the heart of Tai Chi, Fong Yin explained. I thought the heart of Tai Chi would only react naturally when there's danger. Now I understand. My heart of Tai Chi has already started to prepare when it sensed danger. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to block your attack just now. The heart of Tai Chi is a 1,000-year-old lost art. It's indeed extraordinary. However, in these hundreds and thousands of years, there aren't many who could achieve the heart of Tai Chi. The divine dragon god gave Fong Yin a very high evaluation. You're a rare talent in the Tai Chi lineage. In time, your achievements will be limitless. Thank you, Mr. Dragon God, for your praise. Fong Yin said with a smile. He took out a handkerchief from his pocket and wiped the blood stain at the corner of his mouth. The white robe on his body was soaked in red spots by the blood, but there was nothing he could do about it. He wouldn't bleed in the midst of fighting and killing. If it wasn't his blood, then it was someone else's. Fong Yin put the blood-stained handkerchief into his pocket, looked at the dragon god, and said, Let's try again. Look again. The divine dragon looked at Fong Yin with great difficulty and said, As he spoke, the dragon god once again disappeared from the spot. In the air, there was the sound of space being torn apart and the sound of air being wrapped up. The divine dragon once again appeared in front of Fong Yin and slapped Fong Yin's chest. It was the same attack method as before. The sense of rhythm. The dragon god's desperate attacks already had its own unique rhythm. Moreover, he was the one leading the rhythm. Everything was under his control. You could only obey or follow his rhythm. Otherwise, you would only suffer worse consequences. Because his attack was a domain, an illusion. If the domain was broken, it would explode. The shattering of the illusion would leave people at a loss as to what to do. Don't even think about it. Fong Yan's eyes turned cold as he gritted his teeth. This time, no matter what, he would not let the dragon god hit him again. Just as he was thinking this, the heart of Taiji had already started to spin. That transparent crystal seemed to be motionless, but it had already increased its speed to the limit. It was like the sun and moon in the sky that had not moved, but their speed was not something that could be followed by human strength. Waves of warm air broke down from the crystal core and gathered at the spot where the attack was about to hit. They were about to gather into a ball of light again and block the dragon god's desperate attack. Of course, this was the heart of Taiji's natural resistance. Fang Yin also wanted to resist. His body spread out and his feet drew circles on the ground. His body spun into a white ball of light. This time, he finally had the time to fully spread out drunken crane riding the wind. His body turned into a ball of feathers, a leaf, and a transparent ball of light. When you hit a feather with your fist, would the feather be hurt? No. Before your fist even touched the feather, the strong airflow stirred up by your fist would have already sent the feather flying. Fang Yin was the feather that could be sent flying at any time. Of course, this time was different from the last time. This time, he was the one who wanted to be sent flying. He was consciously trying to avoid and defend himself. Last time, he was accidentally hit and was sent flying. Fang Yin felt that he was well prepared this time. Ha! Another palm hit Fang Yin's chest. The palm was light as a feather, but it suddenly came. It pierced through time and space, without any warning. Moreover, Fang Yin's drunken crane, riding the wind, didn't even have time to dodge this palm. In other words, even if Fang Yin turned into a ball of feathers, the dragon god's desperate palm could still destroy the feather. If he used too much strength, the feather would fly away. If he used too little strength, he wouldn't be able to cause any damage to the feather. However, this choice wasn't too difficult for the dragon god's desperate life. He wanted to hit, and he hit. It looked as simple as eating and drinking. Fang Yin tried everything he could and prepared himself, but still couldn't stop the dragon god's desperate palm. And it was the same palm that he had used before. A fight between experts can change in an instant. Once a technique is used too often, it can bring fatal danger to oneself. However, the dragon god's desperate life managed to use the same palm to send Fang Yin flying twice in a row. Fang Yin's body once again flew into the air. Like a kite, he was blown into the air by the wind, then forcefully used qi to twist his body. Whoosh! Fang Yin stepped through the air, once again landing in front of the dragon god's desperate life. The dragon god stared at Fang Yin and smiled. At that time, you shouldn't have forcefully used qi. Fang Yin smiled, but dark red blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Fang Yin's internal organs were injured, and this injury was more serious than the last time. This time, it was your brain that lied to you. The dragon god stared at Fang Yin and smiled. Fang Yin once again took out the handkerchief from his pocket and carefully wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. Then, he folded the handkerchief once again. He folded the bloodstained part inside to prevent it from dirtying his clothes when he put it in his pocket. After he was done with these matters, Fang Yin looked at the divine dragon and said, "I understand." "What do you understand?" the dragon god asked. "I understand how an expert should fight." Fang Yin grinned. He laughed heartily and comfortably. "Yes, this kind of feeling is really wonderful. You only use your finger to poke through a layer of window paper, but you can discover a colorful and wonderful world." The water overflow realm focused on intent and not action. The intent was the soul, and action was the bone. In the past, when Fang Yin fought with others, he would always use all sorts of moves to fight with his life on the line. Elbow strikes, crotch kicks, throat grabbing, nothing was spared. It was all to defeat his opponent. But it was different now. Such a method could not injure an expert at the heavenly Tao realm. Just like a figure like the dragon god, he might shatter you with a palm before you could even throw a punch. Forget about moves. There was no need to deliberately remember anything. Just follow the heavenly Tao naturally. The heavenly Tao was the highest law, far surpassing the martial Tao that Fang Yin had painstakingly learned for more than 20 years. Now, they should be using intent and aura to fight, and not just those moves from before. Otherwise, you would be at a disadvantage, always slower than others. Gong Sun Chi came in front of Yi Ro and whispered, "What do they mean? Why did Master say that Fong Yin was deceived by his brain? Can the brain deceive itself?" Yi Ro did not even look Gong Sun Chi in the eye and said with a deadpan expression, "You don't understand." Gong Sun Chi knew that he was here to embarrass himself. They weren't even from the same world as them. So why did they come here? Then, the smile on Dragon God's face gradually disappeared. He looked at Fong Yin seriously and said, "Let us begin for real." Just as he said that, Fong Yin had already appeared in front of him. No, he appeared above him. Fong Yin was flying high above, holding a huge balloon in his arms. The balloon looked like it was corporeal, and it even made hissing sounds as it fell. There was gas flowing around the balloon, and when some of it was released, more of it would come in to replenish it. Fong Yin pressed the balloon in his hand towards the top of the Dragon God's head. The Dragon God's struggling fingers stretched out halfway before he quickly retracted them. His body turned illusory, and he disappeared in a thin air. Rumble, a huge explosion rang out, and then a strong airflow swept through everything in the surroundings like a sharp blade. The grass was broken, and some of the thicker branches and tree trunks were also directly cut into two by the scattered air currents. The place where Dragon God was standing just now had become a huge pit more than a meter deep. The stench of burnt rocks came from the pit, and some weeds and branches were directly burned into the air. If Dragon God had not dodged in time, he would have been vaporized by now. Dragon God stood on a large protruding rock, looked at the huge pit, and looked at Fong Yin with interest, and said, "This is getting interesting." In the cave halfway up Phalai Peak, a man wrapped in a black robe sat. He was motionless like a withered corpse, but his ears were slightly perked up, listening to every movement on the mountaintop. He was the third party in this battle. Chapter 840. 1,000 cups of wine was too little. To the Dragon God, the current Fong Yin was the only one who could truly be his opponent. The more powerful Fong Yin did not make him panic. Instead, it was something that made him feel happy both physically and mentally. Just as the Dragon God told his disciple, Gong Sun Chi, he had not exercised for a long time. There was no motivation to exercise, and there was no opponent that interested him. Fong Yin's appearance made him want to fight again. Just as he was about to let his disciple, Gong Sun Chi, challenge Fong Yin came looking for him. However, Fong Yin was an expert who had just entered the overflow state. He was like a farmer's boy who had just left the mountain village, only to find out that he was the heir to a billionaire family, and that he was about to inherit a fortune that could rival a country. He was so excited that he bought a sports car, a luxurious villa, and kept a C-list celebrity as his mistress. He felt that his life was too luxurious. In the eyes of the truly rich, he was still a country bumpkin. He did not know how to spend money. In the eyes of the Dragon God, Fong Yin did not know how to use the power of the overflow state. He had a mountain of treasures, but he did not know how to squander them. To people like them who valued martial arts as much as their lives, it was a pity. Therefore, he guided Fong Yin step by step, hoping that he could find the feeling sooner. Now, he saw the results of his labor. Fong Yin's talent was quite high and did not let him down at all. Of course, if Fong Yin was not talented enough, he would not have been able to understand the deeper meaning of his words so quickly. Congratulations on entering the water overflow realm, the Dragon God said to Fong Yin with a smile as he struggled to stand on the protruding boulder. Fong Yin understood what the Dragon God meant. At this time, he truly had the power of the overflow state. Although he had entered the overflow state long ago, in the previous battles, he was still a martial artist who only knew how to use brute force. He would be confused by the illusion created by the enemy, and he would be blinded and led by the opponent's consciousness. He could not be himself. He could not unleash the true power of the water overflow realm. "I know how to fight now," Fong Yin said with a smile. He bowed slightly to the Dragon God and said, "Then let me use my ultimate strength to defeat you. Come, avenge Mo Qingdi." "That's what I thought before." I wanted to defeat you, just like how you defeated Mo Qingdi, Fang Yin said with a serious expression. But now, I only want to defeat you. This is the true meaning of this battle. What? Are you not willing to avenge Mo Qingdi? I think he would be willing to settle such a matter himself. Even if I did defeat you, he would only see it as me defeating you, and not as me avenging him. Indeed. The divine dragon nodded his head with much difficulty. This is the character of not underestimating the enemy. I've found the true meaning of fighting. Fang Yin smiled and said, "So, please accept my challenge." As he spoke, Fang Yin's body rose into the air. His figure disappeared in the air, then reappeared in front of the dragon god. Fang Yin slammed his palm towards the dragon god's face. It was a light punch, seemingly without any force behind it. However, after seeing Fang Yin's attack, the dragon god Mo underestimated the enemy's expression became unprecedentedly solemn. This palm was full of concept and power. He formed a delicate balance, an extremely closed and domineering domain. This made the dragon god unable to accept it, but it would not be good if he did not accept it. The divine dragon tenaciously sent out a palm strike as well. It was also a light and seemingly powerless palm strike. Ho! Their palms collided in the air, creating ripples in the air. As their palms approached, the ripples became larger and larger, and the air currents gathered became more and more frenzied. Pa! Fang Yin and the dragon god's palms finally met, like two magnets slowly approaching each other. Like repels, the greater the magnetic force, the greater the force you exert, the greater the repulsive force. Hiss! The air currents stirred up by Fang Yin and the dragon god hissed, like a beautiful shirt that was torn to pieces before it could be put on. This was Fang Yin's domain meeting dragon god's domain. When the air currents in the domain were completely drained, both of their domains could not hold on any longer and exploded at the same time. Boom! The transparent gas exploded. Other than the dust in the air and the large crater on the ground, there was almost no evidence. Meanwhile, Fang Yin and the dragon god Laborious disappeared to the left and right. When they appeared in front of everyone again, it was when Fang Yin grabbed a big ball and slammed it on the dragon god Laborious' head. The dragon god Laborious punched out, and a huge hole appeared in the ball, but it still persisted and shrouded the dragon god Laborious' body. Boom! The ball smashed on the boulder under the dragon god Laborious' feet, and the boulder bore the brunt of the violent force. Huge cracks appeared on the surface of the stone. First, it broke from top to bottom. Then, cracking sounds rang out incessantly. Countless small cracks appeared. Finally, the base of the huge stone could no longer support itself and collapsed with a rumble. With his attack missing, Fang Yin did not dare to delay. He quickly turned around, and the dragon god Laborious' palm was already aimed at his back. Fang Yin punched back, and in an instant, the two exchanged more than 300 punches and more than 700 kicks in the air. In a flash, it was like a thunderbolt. Gong Sun Chi was dumbfounded and said, "Is this the heavenly Tao realm? Their strength chi is endless?" The cycle is the true meaning of the water overflow realm. Force is like water, and the chi in one's body is inexhaustible. The constant flow of force is called water overflow. Yiro raised her eyebrows and said, "According to this fighting style with their cultivation level, it's normal for them to fight for 3 days and 3 nights. Gong Sun Chi was amazed and said, "Amazing. We should chase after them bravely and not let them monopolize the glory." Yiro did not have a good impression of Gong Sun Chi, and if it wasn't for the sake of supporting Fang Yin, she wouldn't have minded beating him up. If Fang Yin defeated Laborious, Gong Sun Chi would definitely want to avenge his master. When that happened, she would have to beat him up. If Fang Yin was defeated by Laborious, she might have to kill Laborious in order to avenge Fang Yin, and if he wanted to avenge his master, she would still have to beat him up. They were born to be enemies. This contradiction could not be reconciled. Since they were not friends, Yiro's tone was not polite at all. "Work hard." Yiro's voice was cold, and she said, "But some things can't be done with hard work. Boom! A thunderous sound once again resounded in the air. When the giant ball exploded, Fong Yin and Laborious Life were rushing to the periphery. When the explosion ended, sand and pebbles flew everywhere, and the trees withered and disappeared. They had almost raised half of the Flying Peak to the ground. Fong Yin stood on the east side of Flying Peak, while Laborious Life stood on the west side of Flying Peak. The two stood facing each other from afar, not saying a word, not even taking a step, but the sound of swords clashing could be heard. Sword, Laborious Life shouted. Gong Sun Chi threw the sword in his hand over, and when Laborious Life reached out to catch it, the scabbard naturally fell off, and the sword that fell into Laborious Life's hand happened to be the 3-foot-long sword. With the sword in hand, Laborious Life's aura became even colder and more murderous. I like using swords. Do you have a suitable weapon? Laborious Life looked at Fong Yin and asked. Fong Yin shrugged and said, I only have this pair of palms, then I'll take advantage of you. Laborious Life smiled and said. He didn't have to say that, because opponents of their level could hurt with just a flying leaf or a plucking flower. Some were good with spears, some with short swords. Some were good with fists or iron palms. If a sword against a fist was a great advantage, then what about a sword against a spear? In the end, it all depended on the subtlety of the technique or the control of strength, as well as the right time and place. Laborious Life might not be able to win against Fong Yin even with a sword, just like how Mo Qingdi the Azure Dragon couldn't win against Laborious Life even with a spear. Fong Yin practiced Tai Chi, so holding a spear or a sword wasn't his forte. In the path of martial arts, one had to use what one was good at. For example, Fong Yin killed Tao Adixong transplanting seedlings with one shot. Seeing Laborious Life using a spear, Yuro raised her eyebrows slightly. She knew that it wasn't good for Fong Yin, but she didn't say anything. Laborious Life's forte was good with a sword. This was something everyone knew. It would be unfair if he wasn't allowed to use a sword in the competition. Besides, if Fong Yin had a weapon he liked, he could use it too. Laborious Life would not stop Laborious Life. Looking at the sword in Laborious Life's hand, Yiro's heart couldn't help but tighten. This sword was called Exorcist. Back then, Laborious Life used this sword to cut off Mo Qingdi the Azure Dragon's tendons, causing the Azure Dragon's cultivation to be completely destroyed. Since then, he had been a useless person. Now that he had used the Demon Slayer sword again, what would be Fong Yan's fate? Laborious Life raised the Exorcist Life's sword, the seemingly ordinary pitch-black sword without a trace of light. Fong Yin, take this, Laborious Life said to Fong Yin. Chapter 841. You can only see the demon slaying sword before and after he draws his sword. Mo Qingdi once said to Fong Yin. It meant that when the dragon god draws his sword, you can't see the earth sword in his hand. Fong Yin naturally believed it, because Mo Qingdi didn't see it back then either. Otherwise, he wouldn't have expressed his feelings like this. Fong Yin's current level was the same as Mo Qingdi's back then, but he didn't dare to say that he was stronger than Mo Qingdi back then. At his peak, Mo Qingdi was glorious, much more high-profile and dazzling than he was now. Of course, this was mainly because he liked to keep a low profile. He wasn't the kind of man who would go around showing off his achievements. For example, the fact that he had stepped into the water overflow state, other than telling his grandfather Fong Huwei, Mother Lu Wan, fiancé Yi Ro's dead father, and the ancestors of the Fong family. Only Master Yi Fengsheng, Yi Shaojun, Bruce Lee, and Ruan Jing of Swalowdock knew about it. He even specifically told them not to tell anyone else. He didn't like to show off, and he didn't like to be feared. Fong Yin knew that the dragon god had lost his patience. Based on their level of cultivation, if they were to fight regularly, it would probably take 3 days and 3 nights. Obviously, that wasn't in line with the dragon god's interests. First, he didn't want to fight with Fong Yin for so long, because the longer it went on, the greater the impact. Maybe even the country would step in to stop it. A battle without an outcome was like doing something without a climax. It was a waste of time and energy. If other onlookers found this place, the scene would be even more chaotic. It would affect the mood of the battle. Second, he was old, and no matter how strong he was, he couldn't compare to a young man like Fong Yin, who became more energetic and ferocious as he fought. Moreover, he realized that Fong Yan's learning ability was shockingly fast. With a few words of advice, he immediately broke through the wall and entered the real water overflow state. If he fought with him for 3 days and 3 nights, how much combat experience would he learn? The Dragon God just needed a real opponent, but that didn't mean he wanted to lose this battle. So, he chose to use a sword. Fong Yin had no sword, only a pair of iron feet and 2 iron fists. "Please," Fong Yin said. His voice was soft, and there was almost no movement of his lips. It was as if those words were not spoken by him at all. Fong Yin calmed himself down, his state of mind unprecedentedly tranquil. His eyes were clear, but his mind was blank. The heart of Taiji slowly flowed, like the roaming clouds in the sky, like the birds taking a stroll on the ground, like the brook in the forest, unhurried and natural. That transparent crystal hung upside down in the middle of the energy sea, surrounded by clouds and mist. That was the scattered chi that did not abide by the rules. There was an immortal mountain in the immortal world. The mountain was in the sea of clouds. Under Fong Yan's gaze, the dragon god's life disappeared. It was like a goshawk disappearing in the sky. The goshawk was powerful, but the sky was vast and boundless. It was difficult for it to cause any ripples. Fong Yin only had eyes for that sword. It was a very strange scene. The body of the dragon god's life disappeared, but the sword in his hand was still there. That sword hung in midair, like an instrument controlled by an immortal. It rushed toward Fong Yin at lightning speed. Its target was firm, and it stabbed toward Fong Yan's face. You can only see the demon slayer sword before and after he draws his sword. This was what Mo Qingdi told Fong Yin. However, Fong Yin could clearly see that sword. He could see it clearly, even the slight vibration of the blade, and he could even hear the buzzing sound of the blade as it flew. Something's wrong. Fong Yin suddenly came to a realization. Mo Qingdi couldn't see it, but why could he see it? The dragon god's life disappeared, but why didn't the sword disappear? This wasn't a sword. It was a sword shadow. It was the shadow left by the long sword before it was swung. Because it was so fast, it left a trail in the air like a white rainbow. Where's the real body of the sword? Fong Yan's body flew into the air, like a cannonball that had been fired. The sword appeared. The sword appeared in front of Fong Yin. The sword appeared in between Fong Yan's eyebrows, and then it grew infinitely larger. It was like a giant pillar that could hold up the sky, flying toward Fong Yan's head. Fong Yin felt his body tense up, and every hair on his body stood on end. He felt the energy and hot blood in his body surge up from the bottom to the top, and then gathered in the middle of his head, as if it was going to burst through the top of his head and then burst out. It was a fear that reached the depths of his bones. Fong Yin had a strong feeling that he was going to be split in half. This sword was earth-shattering. It was ordinary, but it was majestic and spectacular. It made one's heart tremble, and it was difficult to parry. There was no sound of thunder and no flash of lightning. It was just so quiet, like a ghost ship that suddenly appeared from the Black Sea. He was unstoppable, and it wasn't something that could be done by a human. Immortal vanquishing, Gong Sun Chi shouted in agitation. His pupils dilated as he muttered something. This is the immortal vanquishing sword art. It's said that after the battle of the twin dragons, Master sealed this ultimate move, and it has never been used in front of others. So this is the might of the immortal vanquishing sword. This is the might of the immortal vanquishing sword. It's too shocking. Fong Yin, Yiro called out inwardly. Her hand was already holding onto the end of the whip by her waist, ready to rush forward to save him at any moment. She knew that sparring between heavenly Tao realm existences wasn't to be disturbed. She knew that this was a battle of honor and dignity between 2 peerless experts. She also knew that if she were to interfere, she would be breaking the rules. She even knew that it would be difficult for her to succeed, even if she tried to save him. However, he was her man, her husband that she wanted to spend the rest of her life with. She couldn't watch helplessly as he was slain by a single sword strike. Rules? Rules? What honor and dignity? Anyone could have it. All she wanted was for Fong Yin to be safe. Fong Yin's forehead was burning with pain. It was a pain that felt like his aura was about to be sliced apart. The clothes on his chest peeled off inch by inch, and before they could separate from his body, they were already burning in midair. Countless sparks appeared in the sky before they were instantly extinguished into ashes. Fong Yin closed his eyes. He raised his hands to block the sword, as though it was a natural counterattack, but also a natural self-preservation reaction when one encountered danger. A golden beam of light tore through the sky, illuminating the entire peak of Feilai Peak as though it was daytime. The light of Taiji. This is the light of Taiji. Gong Sun-chi was like a child who had never seen the world as he shouted in agitation. He had long heard that Fong Yin had figured out the light of Taiji. For this, a few elders from the Dao sect had specially gone to Swallow Dock to visit him, hoping that he would join the Dao sect and revive the declining trend of the Dao sect. He did not expect that he would not have the chance to see this unique skill until now. Fong Yin did not even use it when they went on a mission to the Millennium Palace. Of course, he also knew that with the flashy appearance of the light of Taiji, if Fong Yin used it, he would become a human target, and everyone would gather towards the place where the light of Taiji flashed. A smile also appeared on Yiro's face, but she was not as excited as Gong Sun-chi. She knew the magic of the light of Taiji and secretly prayed that the light of Taiji could help Fong Yin block the killing move that the divine dragon had painstakingly used with all his might. This was Fong Yin, the man that Yiro liked. The light of Taiji. This was the light of Taiji that Fong Yin had figured out when he was besieged on the summit of Single Sword Peak. The light of Taiji was like a solid pillar of light, but it also looked like a huge golden sword. It went towards the demon-slaying sword that the divine dragon had painstakingly used. The demon-slaying sword slashed on the light of Taiji, and a strong burst of air was heard. The light of Taiji swept away the demon-slaying sword and blocked this round of attack that the divine dragon had painstakingly used. The divine dragon's painstakingly used body appeared in the air and then disappeared again. He gripped the sword with both hands and flew down from above. Then he slashed at the light of Taiji. Like a knife cutting through tofu, the light of Taiji that was like a golden rainbow was cut into two by the demon-slaying sword. The sword's momentum did not decrease and continued to slash towards Fong Yin's face. The divine dragon sword was definitely going to cut Fong Yin in two. No, if he was affected by the sword chi on the demon-slaying sword, it was likely that Fong Yin's whole body would be blasted into pieces. However, there were already very few people in this world that could make him a second severance. Even Mo Qingdi in the past had been severed under his third severance, so he could no longer move. Fong Yin could be called a prodigy of the martial Dao tier. Fong Yin's body was still flying backwards. Forced by the sword chi, Fong Yin's speed of retreat was even faster. The divine dragon was also chasing after him at high speed, looking like he would not give up until he achieved his goal. The demon-slaying sword was still in Fong Yin's eyes, but he knew that it was not the real sword. It was only the trajectory left behind by the sword when it was moving at high speed. Fong Yin's pupils dilated, and then his eyes also felt scorching hot. Fong Yin's eyes began to bleed. The blood flowed on his face and slid down his cheeks. Then his nose and mouth also began to bleed. The blood that flowed out did not even have time to spread. The demon-slaying sword slashed down from the top of Fong Yin's head, and his body was cut into two, starting from the top of his head, then between his brows, eyes, nose, mouth, neck, abdomen, and neck, all the way to the lower part of his body. One Fong Yin became two halves of Fong Yin, and the two halves of Fong Yin fell to the left and right at the same time. This strike was clean and efficient, as easy and casual as a knife cutting through tofu. There was no blood. The divine dragon had worked hard, and he actually did not see any blood. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.